Divine recalibration is at play with the Libra solar eclipse, and you are fully shedding and releasing karmic attachments of the past in order to step into your brand new beginning. Hi all, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet and welcome to my giveaway. I've partnered with my friends over at Bellesa for a massive giveaway for the viewers of my channel, so stay tuned for the details on how to enter. But before we get into that, let's discuss the Libra Solar Eclipse October 2nd, 2024 and you. During this eclipse, you are being asked by the universe to release whatever in your life has negatively impacted your peace, the finding of harmony within your world, and whatever has been throwing you off balance. When it comes to eclipses, it is bigger than us. And I say that not in a disempowering way, but simply to let you know that this is a time of destined shifts, fated changes, karmic completions, and closures. And so there might be something within your universe that you are clinging to, but the ask with this solar eclipse on the South Node is to let it go. Because yes, South Node has to do with ending and shedding and loss and release, but this is an eclipse on the new moon, a solar eclipse, which represents a new beginning. And so there is a need, as there is with every eclipse, to trust in the universe, to trust in the process. So we will talk about that journey both collectively as well as for your chart and for your sign. But before we get into that, I do want to get into that giveaway that I told you all about. Listen, this solar eclipse aligns with Lilith, and we will talk about more in depth what that archetype represents, but I want to let you know here, Lilith is about being unapologetic about our desires. And one of the major lessons of the South Node in Libra story that has been alive within our universes is around releasing this energy of needing to please or appease others, to keep things pretty, even if the truth of our desires were something different beneath the surface. And so with this solar eclipse conjoining Lilith, there is this energy to tap into your shadow side, to acknowledge that we can't be nice and pretty and polished and put together at every single moment in time, to be unapologetic about your anger, about your desire, about your pleasure. And that energy about being unapologetic about our desires is why I decided to partner with Bellesa on this video. So before I talk about the giveaway, what is Bellesa? Bellesa is a bi-woman company dedicated to all things sexual wellness. So you could take your pleasure, your passion into your own hands. And yes, into your own hands in an empowering state of mind, but also not into your own hands, a little help beyond your hands, because Bellesa is giving out either vibrators or gift cards towards vibrators for everybody who signs up for my giveaway. So that will be within the description. And, you know, eclipses are a little bit of a stressful time, so this could be super helpful for stress relief. So why I love Bellesa is because all of the products I was sent, the Pebble, the Demi Wand, and the Air Vibe, they all come in these adorable little charging cases, like you would truly not know what is within. I mean, now you guys know. You're in on my little secret. I also love that they are silent and you don't have to deal with batteries. You could just charge them. They're rechargeable. You know, an eclipse on the South Node reminds us all good things come to an end, but your time with your Bellesa toys don't have to, because you could just recharge them from there. And beyond the toys themselves, I really resonate with Bellesa's mission, which is around encouraging everyone to empower, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. The energy of this solar eclipse in Libra conjoining Lilith is around releasing any shame around our desires and giving ourselves that space to be unapologetic around what it is that we want. So make sure to check out that giveaway. I have it linked within the description as well as within the pinned comment. Thank you so much, Bellesa, for sponsoring this Libra solar eclipse all signs forecast and hooking all my viewers up with a prize. Some of you will win full toys, some of you will win gift cards towards toys. So check it out and let me know what it is that you win after. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into Libra Solar Eclipse 2024, releasing the past to prioritize your peace. So the Libra solar eclipse will exact on October 2nd, 2024 at 11:49 a.m. PDT. Now do keep in mind that is Pacific time zone, so you'll want to adjust to your local time zone or whichever time zone you'll be in as you experience this eclipse, as it may land at a different time and even on a different date for you. But regardless of when it specifically exacts, the eclipse influence extends beyond it. So it's not that just on October 2nd you're going to have these karmic completions and closures, you will feel this energy build and you will feel it dissipate. And it's considered that events of eclipses continue to reverberate out for the next 6 months. So it's not just limited to October 2nd. And to break down the nuances of this eclipse, it is a solar eclipse, which is an eclipse on the new moon. New moon eclipses are about new beginnings. Now, it is considered that solar eclipses are more so geared to the collective. So also paying attention to the news that comes out during this time, as it can be foreshadowing and hinting events that are transpiring within the collective for the next 6 months. But ultimately, when we talk about solar eclipses, it is a new start, a new beginning. But this is a new start that is disguised as an ending. Because this solar eclipse is on the south node, which is a point within astrology that represents release, letting go. And so there's something that we are releasing with the solar eclipse that is a new beginning, even if we don't see it yet. That's the thing about eclipses, is that we're a little bit in the eye of the storm. And so we don't see the full impacts of what is playing out currently. And so just know that if you are asked to grieve, to let go of something, whether it's a pattern within yourself, whether it's a relationship within your life, whether it's a partnership, whether it's a habit, whatever it is, know that it honestly and truly is setting you up for a new beginning. But right now we are a little bit more in the loss and the release part of it with this solar eclipse on the south node. We could be acknowledging all that we have let go since this eclipse cycle started a year and a half ago. We could be grieving something from the past that needs to fully be shed from our energy before we can move forward. We could be energetically processing some sort of loss that is going to allow us for a fresh new start. There is an energy of release and loss, and the energy of south node, it's a very spiritual part. And so it does represent this need to kind of find the spiritual higher perspective, find a sensation of peace with what's transpiring, even if you don't feel peaceful, even if it doesn't feel fair to you at this moment, what's transpiring, to strive wherever possible to reach for that spiritual perspective around all is playing out as it's meant to, and all will be made clear when it's meant to. And this solar eclipse is concentrated at the portion of the sky that is 10 degrees Libra. Now, we will break down what life arenas it is stirring up for you. But firstly, let's talk about what this eclipse means. Because it is wrapping up a cycle that's been ongoing since April 2023. That was the first eclipse that we had in the Aries Libra cycle. And this is the last eclipse that we will have in Libra. We have one more Aries solar eclipse in this axis come March of 2025, and that's wrapping up what we've been learning from the North Node in Aries journey. But this one is all about the South Node in Libra journey, which ultimately is around release and shedding. Which, like I said, with the energy of Libra, a lot of us are letting go of people pleasing. What we feel like we have to be for other people's approval and validation is something that we've been collectively shedding. Some people could have been doing a lot of work around consciously decentering romantic relationships at this time. Some of you may have had to actually release a relationship or partnership within your world, or at least your dependence upon it. Waiting on someone else to give you permission to live or even permission to exist is something that we are collectively shedding. As well as when we release any sort of codependent behavior or any sort of people-pleasing behavior and call back our power to ourselves, which is what North Node in Aries was trying to guide us towards, there can be an energy around releasing the behaviors that we felt like we had to have in order to keep people around. And it's not that this is an eclipse about release everybody and just go do things on your own. Again, we're here as human beings to connect. But it's more so around shedding what within you felt like you had to be in order to have other people's approval or have other people's validation or to keep the peace artificially. Because like I said, this is an eclipse around regaining a semblance of peace and harmony and balance within your world. But there's been a lesson with South Node in Libra that peace is not truly peace if you're at war with yourself but keeping peace with everybody else. If you are saying yes to everybody else when internally your body, your mind, your soul is screaming no, that's not peace. You know, the energy of Libra is represented by a scale, the balance of you and I. And so what this eclipse cycle has been activating, where those scales have been imbalanced, where we've been prioritizing other people at the expense of ourselves. Being so afraid to disappoint others that we consistently and continually disappoint ourselves again and again and again. So just witnessing what has been alive within your world since March 2023 when this eclipse cycle began. How have you released suppressing your truth under the guise of keeping the peace? And how are you embracing a truly peaceful existence, which means also being at peace with yourself? Even if that means saying no and having people react in certain ways to your boundaries, it is worth it if it allows you to feel calibrated and balanced within yourself. And anyone who has a strong problem with you enforcing boundaries is likely not somebody you want within your universe anyway. Not everybody will experience a breakup, a friendship breakup, a releasing of a past relational cycle, but a lot of us will. And I want to let you know that sometimes we do the releasing. We acknowledge that for me to keep this person in my life, it means stepping out of integrity with myself. It means continually having to disappoint myself. It means having to mold and shapeshift to what this person wants me to be. This eclipse might make you realize I need to choose me, which again can create reactions within other people that may not feel very peaceful, but ultimately it's you moving through that true element of peace, which is feeling balanced within yourself and having relationships, partnerships within your world that are also balanced. And so some of you could make that conscious decision around this connection is imbalanced. Maybe you've been giving more than you've been receiving. Maybe you've been having to play a role or have a facade in order to feel validated by this person. Perhaps you're releasing dependence on needing this person's validation. That could be the story for some. But I do want to highlight when it comes to eclipses, sometimes the universe does the releasing for us. And I want to let you know, if someone decides to end your relationship around this time, if a friend decides to put distance between you and them, or something else occurs where someone is stepping out of your orbit and it's not what you want at this moment, I want you to trust, believe, and feel within your soul that it is happening for a higher purpose. And you may not be able to see it at this time, and that's okay. You might be wanting to cling to certain relationships or partnerships or friendships, like, please, no, don't leave me or don't exit my world. You know, I want you within my world. But something that you gotta take solace in, especially during this eclipse, is that if someone is drifting from your universe, the wisest thing that you can do at this moment is to let them drift. And it's not to say that it's forever, okay? It's not to say that they're a bad person, but what I can tell you with complete confidence, given my understanding of the cosmos, is that what happens around eclipses, whether we know it or not, it is supporting our soul's development. So if someone is eclipsed out of our life, that connection vanishes, the door is closed, please know that this is for your soul's development. Even if from your ego level, your human level is like, no, but I love this person, but I want this person. Trust me, it's for a bigger purpose. I truly do believe that eclipses will sometimes like yeet people out of our lives for our own protection. The universe sees all. It knows your soul, it knows your heart, it knows your intentions, it knows your desires. And it also knows this person's heart, intentions, and desires. And sometimes what we're perceiving as being very rejected by somebody is truly the universe protecting us. And you really have to trust in that. And again, maybe it's just you guys need to grow separately as people and the universe will bring you back together. But at this moment, if something is trying to exit your world, this is not the time to fight and to battle and to cling and to beg. Let it go. Let it go. Do you really want to be in this connection where this person needed to be cajoled to be back in it? Do you really want to be in a connection when this person wants to leave it? And whether you're doing the leaving or somebody else is doing the leaving, I want to bring it back to the rule of relationships, which is what is best for one person, honestly and truly, is best for the other person, whether we recognize it at this time. So if anybody is having guilt at this moment around releasing a certain connection or releasing a certain relationship, please know that even if they don't see it at the time, if you're halfway in it, if you're not fully in it, if you are being guided to go outside of this relationship, that is for a reason. And even if they're protesting their human level, soulfully, you are setting them free. They just haven't realized it yet. And vice versa. You know, if somebody comes to you and they want to release a connection and you're like, no, please don't leave me. Trust me, what's best for one person is what's best for the other. Even if they do not recognize it at that time, it is the rule of relationships. And I want to be clear that not every single person will experience this eclipse story specifically around relationships. For others, it's a financial story or a family story. We'll get into it in our sign-by-sign analysis. But the energy of Libra does bring into focus our relationships and our connections. And this isn't to say for everybody it is a separation. For some, it could be completing a certain cycle within an existing partnership or within a partnership of the past. You know, if you are in a relationship currently where there is an energy around brushing things under the rug and not being honest and forthright about your desires and not even being honest and forthright about who it is that you are, in this effort to keep the peace, that could be something that you are letting go of in order to have a healthier new start within your relationship. Maybe this is an eclipse in which the two of you are able to finally put certain issues to bed. Maybe this is an eclipse in which you are able to shed codependent patterns and how that has been impacting your relationship in order to have a new, healthier start. If you have a certain tendency in dating, if you have a tendency to put people on pedestals, if you have a tendency to choose certain partners that you know are not good for you, that can also be something that you are releasing during this eclipse in order to set yourself up for a brand new beginning. And some of you are doing the work around really grieving a past relationship. I do need to highlight that eclipses are karmic. They're karmic times, which is why sometimes we can hear from people from our past. And I want to let you know that if you do hear from an ex or a friend from the past, or even a colleague from the past, boss of the past, it's not the universe saying, okay, you got to drag this person into the future, right? Like with this eclipse on the South Node, it also aligns with Mercury. You could hear from people from the past, not for the purpose of entangling with this person for your future, but for you to be able to gain clarity from this person, maybe even getting an apology from this person, and to find closure, to fully and energetically sever those old ties to step into a new beginning. And with this eclipse, if you are part of the collective who does hear from somebody from your past, it's deeply important for you to protect your peace. To know that ultimately, sometimes we want to hear that apology or have that final conversation that helps us find closure. And for some, you might be able to. But for others, allowing someone who consistently creates chaos in your world is not going to give you the peace that you are fully seeking. Like sometimes we cannot even give people an inch, right? And so you might have some people knocking at your door, but I would lock your door, right? Look through the peephole. If people from the past try to come back, to really contemplate, is this somebody that I want to open the door to? Especially if I know that they're going to bring all this chaos into this nice, peaceful home that I've created. Because for some of you, I'm just feeling you've worked so hard to rebuild your peace, and I just don't want you to backslide into chaotic old relationships or even fighting. This eclipse squares Mars. You've worked too hard to build your peace to allow someone to come in and ruin it, right? So check the peephole of the door before you just widen it open to anyone from your past to come in. Because sometimes there are certain relationships where we just go round and round in circles with them, like elusively trying to find this closure that's never fully there because they're chaotic, they're volatile, they want to fight with us. Like the energetic of peace is not going to be found with somebody who wants war or wants to fight with us. Like sometimes people just want your energy so much that they will do whatever it is that they can to get a response from you, even if it's a negative response. And so I do feel that discernment is necessary at this time. And if you do hear from someone, if you do look through the door and look through the keyhole and you see someone there, before you open the door, use discernment and also ask yourself, is there something within me that I need to shed or to release within this connection? Because some of you might not even hear from this person in 3D. Some of you could dream of this person. You could be getting a lot of signs of this person. You could feel their energy all around you. And it's, again, not the universe saying, go back to this person is your soulmate. It's the universe bringing this up because something within you is energetically tied to this person in some way. if they're showing up in your energy, something within you is energetically tied to them. And the thing is, when you are still energetically tied to something from the past, it's very hard to be in a vibrational state to be able to attract new into your life. It's like being halfway in and halfway out. And oftentimes when we are halfway in, halfway out, around trying to be open to new, but we're still grieving and thinking about this person from the past, we're still holding out hope for this person from the past, or we're still healing from the person of the past, a lot of times we can attract other individuals who are halfway in, halfway out in their own regard, or halfway in or halfway out with us, right? We do in a lot of instances attract what it is that we are. So if we are not fully in a space around being able to receive and like really be emotionally available and really create that balanced, beautiful relationship of our dreams, there's a need to be completely out, right? Not halfway in, halfway out. If that's not what it is that you want, or more importantly, what the universe has designed for you, there can be a need during this eclipse around how can I be fully out? Like, what is the part of me that is holding out hope for this person? What is the part of me that's still attached to this person? What is the part of me that is energetically still tied to this person? Because even to an energetic level, when we still have a tie to someone, like they can feed off our energy and it can affect our peace. So for some of you, you may find that this eclipse is around fully grieving that relationship, that connection, maybe doing whatever you can energetically to completely sever that bond. Again, it made you the person that you are, honoring the role that it played in your soul's development, right? But also honoring like where it is that I'm going. I don't want to be still tied to this situation. Like the energetic of who I was in this connection, what this connection was within my world, is not the energetic of what I'm stepping into. So I need to fully close the door on that to step into that. And so when it comes to this, some of you might take those final action steps that just help you shed. Like sometimes small little things that we do are still keeping this halfway in, halfway out dynamic within our world. For example, if you still have an ex on your social media, right? You still have their name in your phone. You still have some belongings of theirs. Like sometimes little things like that can still be creating these ties, right? Or these energetic cords. You know, I would recommend a cord cutting ritual. I don't love doing rituals during eclipses. We'll get into that in the how to celebrate this Libra Solar Eclipse ritual of why, but it might be appropriate after this eclipse. If you notice around this eclipse, you're just like grieving or sad about this person that you're like, this person has not been in my world for a while. Like, why am I so emotional around it? It's because you're fully grieving it. And this could be potentially a cathartic solar eclipse. And it is honestly and truly setting you up for the next stage. So let it go. Let yourself shed, let yourself grieve, let yourself process. And some of you might do that on your own, right? Just energetically. Some of you may have an opportunity to do that with the other person if that's what's necessary for this closure. But there is an energy around recalibration and karmic rebalancing. Because around this eclipse, I do feel like some of our karma in relationships is ending. That's truly how I feel. I feel like you are closing out a major cycle karmically with someone else. And really just taking the lesson with this eclipse on Mercury and really just looking towards the future. Because for those I'm talking to where this is going to be a relationship story, the thing about eclipses is that it tends to be very spiritual bonds, very karmic bonds that don't really make a lot of sense. These sort of connections do not make a lot of sense. A lot of times it's for spiritual soul development, and it's not always pleasant. You know, it could really bring up our shadow. It really could have sent us into our dark night of the soul. You know, this relationship could have even prompted for some of you your spiritual awakening. And I'm really sensing for some that it was a more challenging, destructive, even nefarious relationship. And it's okay to feel angry about it, you know, if someone mistreated you. I think to a certain degree, the North Node Aries energy is around embracing sacred right. And with South Node Libra, releasing this notion that we need to keep the peace all the time and make sure everything's nice, is this energy around, no, I'm angry. You treated me poorly and I'm mad. And it's okay to be mad about it. In fact, around the solar eclipse, you could have all sorts of emotions come up, and do trust that they're coming up for the purpose of releasing it, getting it out of your system once and for all. Don't feel like you have to suppress any feelings of anger. But if possible, if available, okay, dependent on your healing journey, try to reach for what it taught you. Because for those that I'm talking to where there is a relationship story and connectivity to this eclipse, there was something around this connection, as challenging as it could have been, as painful as it could have been, as hurtful as it could have been, that did help you evolve as a soul. Because that's what eclipses do, is it really is where our soul's journey is taking us and evolving and accelerating. And sometimes the most valuable lessons are wrapped up in the most challenging experiences within our life. And just knowing if this is helpful for your journey around finding closure and like karmically completing that cycle, like seeing if you could thank that person and for what it is that they taught you and showed you. You could be mad, right? You could be mad. You could keep the door closed. Okay, you could keep the door closed, but seeing, you know, thank you for allowing me to realize that people like this exist, or that this is what I want within a relationship and not that. That can be helpful to see that higher perspective, especially if it happens around an eclipse. Sometimes that helps us fully energetically sever that cord because we fully process the lessons around it. And that could be a message for some, not all, depending on where it is that you are within the journey. And you might be hearing that thinking, Haley, Comet, but it's not fair. It's not fair what that person did to me and how they got away with it. It's not fair how I was mistreated. It's not fair that I didn't get what I needed or what I wanted. It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. And I feel, and not all of you are going to like this, but I feel that South Node in Libra is asking us to release this idea that things need to be fair. Because a lot of times this desire to want things to be fair can keep us entrenched in very unhealthy or even toxic dynamics. Like it's not fair, but your desire to try to balance the scales around enacting revenge or teaching this person a lesson or telling this narcissist that they're a narcissist for us to feel more empowered in the situation, sometimes it just keeps us more stuck in it, more ensnared in it. And sometimes, you know, choosing your peace, choosing silence, taking the higher road, it's not fair, but it's worth it if it promotes your peace. If wanting things to be fair so badly keeps us in situations that are actively causing us harm, the only decision to make is to walk away. Even if it doesn't feel fair, that this person got to do this and that and the third, and we didn't get to teach them a lesson, or it doesn't feel like they're getting their karmic payback, so we're trying to enact it. My love, some things are out of your hands. Your job is to protect your peace and your sanity and your well-being. And this situation is not in alignment with that. So for some of you, I've even feeling like you are letting go of the power plays. You know, there could be someone who's trying to get your attention and going by any means necessary in order to get it. And it might be so annoying to you to let that person win by not playing their game or by not teaching them a lesson. But trust me, the universe sees all. You know, something we need to keep in mind about Libra energy is that Saturn, the planet of karma, exalts in Libra. So you might feel like this person got away with it or that they got everything they wanted and you got nothing out of the situation, but trust that the universe saw their sketchy behavior, okay, and the universe will right the scales. And sometimes it's not our job to get involved, especially if our peace and our sanity and our well-being is at danger, which I'm just tapping in. I feel like for some of you, it is. You know, this eclipse aligns with Lilith and it squares Mars. Some of you have someone who has been actively fighting with you, bringing the worst out of you, and there is like an energy with the solar eclipse around closing that door. Even though it doesn't feel fair, an energy around my peace is worth more than continuing this war with you. Because again, it could feel like you're winning, but there's just an energy around severing this connection by not feeding it any energy whatsoever. And releasing of this notion around things need to feel completely fair or balanced around they did this, so I need to do this. It's in the universe's hands, okay? It didn't get away from the universe, right? And that might be a hard decision, but I'm just seeing that it's the decision that some of you are making. And not everybody is dealing with a tenuous, challenging person within their world. For others of you, what you're releasing with this eclipse is this desire to want to keep the peace at all means necessary. Some of you are releasing this need to be perceived and validated and liked in a certain way. You're recognizing that with this eclipse, you have tried, you've gone above and beyond to be what other people wanted you to be, and still it wasn't enough. Still, it wasn't enough. Still, your mother-in-law makes those digs, or still your boss asks you to come in on the weekends. Like, there's just this acknowledgement around, it'll never be enough, now will it? And in this effort to not disappoint everybody else, I've profoundly disappointed myself, and it still wasn't enough. So forget it. Like, forget it. I'm not going above and beyond for you all. I'm letting go of my validation needing to come from this source, and I'm stepping into my power. I mentioned earlier that this eclipse aligns with Lilith, who is a controversial figure, and there is a lot of folklore around Lilith and different belief systems that attribute different qualities to her. I mean, some of it gets a little intense, but one of the more popular understandings around Lilith is that Lilith was Adam's first wife, and she clearly didn't play that role for long because she refused to submit. Lilith is an archetype around where it is that we refuse to submit to the role of what other people want us to be. So a lot of times it is assigned to the dark feminine. A lot of times it is considered this archetype around being unapologetic around our desires and refusing to relinquish our power. And so I just see with this energy of South Node, Lilith, and Libra all together, some of you are entering a bit of a villain era. And not in a full Lilith way, because in some of the folklore, she eats babies and whatnot. I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that there's this energy around, I refuse to be in situations where I have to step out of integrity with myself for even 1 minute. I refuse to plaster a smile on my face when you have done something that has violated a boundary. And I refuse to be in situations where I have to diminish my power in order to make people more comfortable. And I am consciously making that decision to release any behavior that has been programmed into me. You know, good guy programming, nice girl programming, like the programming that just makes us feel like we just need to kind of put up with it, how other people treat us. And I feel that a lot of us are shutting that go for this new beginning. So a lot of us are releasing shame around our desires and around our power. You know, some of you might be a little too humble in order to make other people feel more comfortable in meetings. Saying, well, I think that this might be a good idea, or what about this? Because you don't want to come off as too overbearing or too much or too bossy. And there's an energy around no. With this solar eclipse, it's like this programming within me is actively holding me back. And you know, we do have to keep our eye on this Lilith energy, because I'm not saying all of us need to, you know, fight and advocate and lash out and rebel. I do feel that to a higher level, some of us are releasing this need to enact our own desires in a situation, just recognizing, you know, the scales of justice will handle this, the scales of karma will handle this. My job is to be in balance and peace within myself, and to actively get away from environments that are taking away from my balance and peace, and actively release the behaviors, and actively release the behaviors, and actively release the behaviors that make me feel like I need to suppress my power in order to keep the peace for others while being at war within myself, because I'm not being true to my desires and who it is that I am. And so as you can tell, this eclipse is multifaceted, and it is eclipse with a message. You know, this eclipse aligns with Mercury, so some of us could hear something, we could have something told to us, we could even have an aha or an epiphany within our own being that makes it clear what we need to release, what is knocking us off balance, what is taking away from our harmony and peace, where in this effort to keep the peace with others, we are going against ourselves. And there's an element of shadow work involved with this eclipse, as it does conjoin Lilith exactly and square off with Mars in Cancer. What we put in the shadows or push in the shadows, or the aspects of ourselves that we push in the shadows, grows. It has the ability to bloom and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And oftentimes keeping that all suppressed and hiding it with a smile and no problem, even though inwardly there is a big problem, that within you gets more and more powerful. And eventually you will snap. Not in a scary way, but eventually you will need to process and to scream and to be angry. Like, it's not in our human nature to be love and light all the time. Okay, just keeping it real. That's not in our nature. And in fact, if you're trying to hide everything under love and light and being liked by everybody, that shadow within you will get even more powerful. And that's where we can lash out in very destructive, nefarious ways. Like I said, Lilith is an intense archetype, right? It's not always pretty. It's not always PG. And so there's an energy around what does it mean to be at peace with our desires? What does it mean to be at peace with who it is that we are and what it is that we unapologetically want out of life, which may differ from what other people want us to be. Beyond being a supportive role in other people's movies, you are your own protagonist. And ultimately, this life is your own. And so I feel that some individuals are just letting go of other people's opinions or seeking validation for your decisions and just being like, this is my life. I'm going to be unapologetic about what I want from it. Because like I said, with Lilith, she was like, this role of being Adam's wife and being subservient, it doesn't fly with me. And with this eclipse, if you are in a role that feels like it's being pushed on you by other people, it's around reclaiming your power around this role that you see me as does not align with me. Like, you don't want to be at the end of your life and realize that somebody else was calling the shots or directing your role or telling you the role that you play. And there will be an element of stepping into your power and deciding the role that you want to play in life that other people will not understand. They will not get it. Everybody's viewing things from their perspective. And I feel that there's an energy around recognizing I've tried to be what other people wanted me to be, and I still feel miserable. I still feel imbalanced within myself. And yes, stepping into my own authenticity will mean being too much for other people. There will be certain desires that I have about my life that other people do not understand. There will be elements of the decisions that I make and the relationships that I choose and the career path that I take that may not be popular. And it's okay, because it's my life. So if you've been letting other people's thoughts on how it is that you live your life and the role that you should be playing, there just feels to be this energy around letting that go and really doing the shadow work necessary in order to make peace with your desires. Because sometimes we fight it. We're like, why am I not like other people? Why am I not satisfied with the things that other people want, or with the relationships that other people want, or the life arc that other people want? Why am I not like everybody else? And why have I been so miserable trying to be what other people would easily validate and approve of? But it's because you're not at peace with yourself. Because a lot of times we can fear our desires quite a bit, or that part of us that feels raw and wild and passionate, right? We can suppress that and put it beneath the surface. And there's an energy to make peace with your wildest desires and what it is that you want out of this experience and what it is that you want for yourself, and to no longer live for others. This solar eclipse is not about releasing all of your relationships and just saying, sayonara, I'm going to do it solo, but only putting energy into the relationships that are pouring into you, again, that energy of balance, as well as the ones that recognize the role that you have chosen for your life and are okay with that. Like, there are individuals where if they've cast you for a certain role, for a certain supportive role in their movie, and it doesn't gel the authentic role that you want to play, you guys have to trust that you guys are just creating different movies, right? You are so much more than just a supporting role in other people's movies. And so there can be an energy around reclaiming your anger, reclaiming your passions, reclaiming your autonomy, and shedding any sort of attachment on other people's validation. Around, if people think I'm this, then I'm this. If people like me, then I'm likable. If people think I'm smart, then I'm smart. This very reactive way of approaching life that diminishes our power. It's an energy around knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and being unapologetic of it, and understanding that this life will entail letting people down. It will entail disappointing people. It's not saying you have to be mean and cruel, but it's saying for you to live your most authentic, your most powerful, your most embodied life, it will mean being too much for others, and that's okay. Because I want you to step into the fact that you, within your rawness, within your wildness, within your authenticity, are enough within yourself. And your desire to try to be more palatable is watering down that magnetic essence that exists within you. And I do feel that some people are just reaching this point, breaking point of sorts, around recognizing I've gone above and beyond for the people in my life, and it's still not enough. It's still not enough. It's still not enough. Like a lot of times when we're in this people-pleasing dynamic, we harbor all of this resentment and we become this martyr because we've continually overextended and we have not honored our boundaries. And there's just an energy around recognizing, wow, I've gone above and beyond and it's still not enough. Recognizing, how did I let this happen? How did I contribute to this behavior? Why did I go above and beyond? Because if you do actions just to get a certain reaction out of other people, that is not truly fair. That is not truly balanced. And so there's an energy to live in integrity with what it is that you want and how it is that you show up, and to release needing other people to respond in a certain way. Again, relationships should be balanced. There should be this nice give or take. And I see that some of you, if you've been in a role around overgiving and acknowledging this person isn't giving into me, it's yes, honoring that you should invest more of your energy in relationships that are more equitable, but also honoring your role around going above and beyond. Like, wow, why did I do that? What was I looking for from this person? And how can I secure the validation that I was looking for in this person within myself? How can I validate myself? I feel a lot of us are stepping into. Because when you validate yourself, you no longer diminish your power. You no longer allow yourself to live in this very reactive state around, if I get the reaction that I want from this person, then I'm valuable, then I'm lovable, then I'm this and that. If I am liked by this person, if I'm in a relationship, these things that may change. You know, people are very fickle. They might like you one day, they might not like you the next. Might be in a relationship one day, might not like you the next. And there's just this energy around no longer wanting to live your life in this very reactive state, wanting to step into being fully integrated within your own self and within your own power. And I do want to share that the ruler of this eclipse is Venus in Scorpio, which brings in this theme that love is regenerated. And I share that just in case some of you are feeling like it wasn't fair how much love or care or compassion you poured into a situation and you feel like you got nothing out of it. It's important to know that just as energy is never created nor destroyed, same goes with love. And with Venus and Scorpio, you have the ability to call back that love, that care and compassion, and call it back into yourself, right? It was not a waste. And with Venus and Scorpio, it's acknowledging that no matter what you feel like you did or didn't get out of the situation, with Venus and Scorpio, you can alchemize all that you poured into that connection and pull it into yourself or pull it into the next relationship. There is an energy with Venus and Scorpio around acknowledging the transformative nature of love and relationships, and that oftentimes our love changes forms, but is never truly lost or wasted. We can alchemize it back to ourselves. We can alchemize it towards someone else. And I do want to share that the ruler of this eclipse is involved in a grand trine at the time of this eclipse, linking Mars and Saturn. So it's a grand water trine at the time of this solar eclipse. And I'll be forthright, you know, around this eclipse, it's squaring Mars, it's on Lilith. Some of us are going to be mad, we're going to be angry. We could hear from people from the past who are mad or angry, trying to bring in chaos into our world, right? But then there's this watery grand trine, which is supporting us around letting it flow and letting it go. Right? With this water energy, we could definitely be feeling more emotional, but if we think of the quality of water, it's just around allowing the ebb and allowing the flow. So welcoming in the new connections that are coming into your orbit, the new relationships that are coming into your orbit, the new balanced, healthy relationship patterns that you are welcoming into your orbit. Let it flow in, right? But it's also acknowledging what's ebbing its way away from you and just trusting in that beautiful flow of the universe. Again, we don't chase after the wave and say, wait, why are you ebbing? Why are we ebbing? We trust that it'll flow when it's meant to. And that's the higher level of trust that you are being asked to honor during this eclipse. So if you are deeply moved and inspired by this Libra solar eclipse and want to celebrate it, here are some considerations that I would add from my perspective as a professional astrologer. Eclipses, especially within traditional astrology, were regarded with quite a bit of respect. I mean, in some traditions, they honestly were acknowledged with quite a bit of fear. And I'm not saying we need to live in fear. If you're familiar with my content, you know that everything that I do, every video that I post is always in alignment with the cosmos are happening for us, not to us, and to not live in fear, to understand what the planets are doing, but don't allow them to run your life, right? That is something that's very, very encoded in my own personal ethos as an astrologer. So I'm not saying we have to live in fear. I mean, people in traditional times used to not even go outside during eclipses. Still go outside, live your life. But what I'm saying is that eclipses are karmic, fated, destined. And so it's such volatile energy that I personally don't like getting involved by way of rituals and things of that nature. I think it's a time of surrender. I think it's a time of letting God, universe, fate do its thing as we just bear witness to it. What's unfolding now? Now, if you have certain traditions, if you're part of a certain culture, part of a certain community where it is part of your own personal craft to do rituals, by no means, I'm not talking over you in any way. I'm just sharing. If you're having any FOMO, which tends to come up because eclipses, you know, there's a lot of buzzword, there's a lot of clickbait and things of that nature around, oh my gosh, the most powerful solar eclipse to manifest love. That's what I'm fearful of. This is not the solar eclipse that I would manifest the love of your life during, or a soulmate. Yes, it's in Libra. Yes, it's a new moon, which represents a new beginning, but it's on a south node. Like, you could try to do a love spell to manifest your partner and accidentally manifest a demon. I'm just kidding. I'm not saying you literally will, but the energy of South Node, it's giving karma, it's giving past lives, it's giving unhealthy attachment. Like, it's not the energy I would get involved to call in your soulmate. And trust that the universe is doing that for you. So you don't have to get involved. That's what I'm saying when I say not to do rituals around eclipses. You can honor it, definitely meditate. This is an eclipse on Mercury, so pay attention to messages that come in. Pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to who you're hearing from. It's not about the people, if you do hear from people, but acknowledge, am I still energetically attached to this person? What did I learn about myself within this relationship? How balanced was this relationship? And where did I personally contribute to that lack of balance? What did I learn from this person that I'm bringing with me to create more harmonious and equitable relationships in the future? Where did I suppress my own unapologetic desires within this relationship? Where did I feel like I had to play a role in order to have this person's approval or validation? What am I truly seeking from this person that I allowed them to bring in the level of chaos that they did? Again, these are just some potential questions to just kind of drop in. If you do hear from someone, dream of someone, it's so rarely about that person. It is around you and your own soul's development. And sometimes if you want to just close this chapter, sometimes we got to just integrate the lesson fully and completely, which the solar eclipse could be an opportunity to do just that. And when it comes to eclipses, yes, it is a time of new beginnings and closures and completions. It would not be the time that I would rush to make a decision, okay? Firstly, it's a solar eclipse in Libra, which is a sign that tends to be a little indecisive. But secondly, around eclipses, we tend to be a little bit more energetically and emotionally charged. So you may find that you don't exactly have the clearest head in order to accurately assess, do I want to continue this relationship or not? Do I want to take this contract or not? Do I want to quit my job or not? Eclipses tend to make us feel this now or never sensation, like we need to do something now or forever hold our peace, right? And if possible, if you can delay the decision, wait until a little after the eclipse. See if you still see it the same way. Oftentimes eclipses can kind of rile us up quite a bit, and then it does cool off temperature-wise a little bit more, and you're able to really see what changes you need to make. It's not that it's a time of resisting change, but oftentimes if you are meant to change your life at this time, the universe will make that abundantly clear to you. It's almost like there will be no other option but to walk down that path, or but to shut that door, or but to let it go. So you will know if you're meant to change something major. If you're still on the fence, just wait a little bit until after this eclipse, see what it brings up for you. So you might be asking, asking, Haley Comet, what does this Libra solar eclipse mean for me? Will this eclipse be life-changing for me? Let's talk about it. The Libra solar eclipse, October 2nd, 2024, will be the most strongly felt by those who have strong cardinal placements, that is Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, between 5 to 15 degrees. So if you see that you have a cardinal sign in between 5 to 15, this eclipse will be more influential for you. And when I say placement, I would put special emphasis on Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or an angle, ascendant, IC, descendant, midheaven. If it's between 5 and 15, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, this one may be more instrumental for you because not every eclipse changes our lives every single time, right? When it completely, utterly transforms our lives, that means we are eclipsed. And thankfully, we do not get eclipsed with every single eclipse cycle. But I will say, if you have strong cardinal placements, even if it's beyond those degrees that I stated, my love, the last year and a half has been more instrumental for you. It could have been more transformative. It could have been life altering for you. And you are almost at the end of the journey. You know, next year, the nodes will shift into Pisces and Virgo, and then we completely finish off this axis with the eclipse in March 2025. So really take some time to acknowledge all that you have evolved towards, all that you have let go of during this past eclipse cycle. It could have been a very transformative time for you. And even if you are not in that category of those who may have an incredibly impactful eclipse story, it's not to say that you don't have an eclipse story. You know, sometimes it shows up within something dramatic, and sometimes it's just like a new idea or a conversation or an aha that helps us make more healthy decisions within our relationships. So you still have an eclipse story even if you are not being eclipsed. So let's talk about how to find your own unique eclipse story. So there are two options of how you can proceed with the rest of this video. So the first option I would recommend if you use whole sign house system, or if you are newer to astrology. And that would be simply find your rising sign in the description below and advance to that timestamp. That is your reading. That is your eclipse story and your South Node Libra story that you are wrapping up with this eclipse. Now, if you use Placidus house system, I do as well. It is a little bit more complicated, but I'll show you step by step with an on-video guide to how to find where exactly this eclipse lands within your chart. So this eclipse lands at 10 degrees Libra. So what you want to do is you'll want to go to astro.com and you'll want to pull up your circle chart, which looks like this. The Libra glyph is yellow and it looks like this. I'm circling it on screen, and the line to line represents the Libra territory of your chart. Now, we'll want to find the beginning of Libra. So Libra begins where Virgo ends. I'm circling it on screen. So this represents 0 degrees Libra. Now, these little grid marks indicate increments of 5. So we're going to go 5 degrees Libra, that's the first one, and then 10 degrees Libra. The second grid mark represents where exactly this solar eclipse lands in. You'll want to go towards the inner ring, and you'll see little numbers within the piece of pizza, and this represents the house or the life arena that the eclipse lands in for you. So we see within Inner Planet Janet on screen, this solar eclipse, October 2024, lands within her 8th house. So that would be the reading that she would advance to. Because this eclipse is right on the grid mark, you should be able to tell which house it's in, but just in case you don't, click the PDF additional charts button on astro.com, and on the right-hand side, it'll give you a graph that tells you what degree exactly every house begins between. So let's say we weren't sure if it's in the 8th house or the 9th house. We would go to this graph and we would see when the 9th house begins, right? And so we see here that the 9th house begins at 14 degrees Libra. Since that comes after 10 degrees Libra, we know for certain that this solar eclipse lands within the 8th house because 10 comes before 14. So hopefully that gave you clarity on which reading to listen for. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into our Libra solar eclipse all signs reading. If the Libra solar eclipse October 2nd, 2024 lands within the first house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Libra rising yourself, or you may just have 10 degrees Libra located within the first house. But regardless, I want to let you know that this is a major eclipse for you. And more broadly speaking, the South Node in Libra transit has been a more impactful transit for you. So let's get into it. Not all of you will be Libra placements, but all of you will have South Node in your first house. And it's confusing time when you have South Node in your sign or South Node transiting your first house, simply because first house is around self, identity, I am, energy. And South Node is like this astrological vacuum that kind of sucks away, right? It has to deal with release. And I want to let you know that it's not that this eclipse nor this transit is about releasing yourself, but it is about releasing an outdated version of yourself. But oftentimes when we are walking through this very transformative but very transitional period of our lives, we do feel quite lost, because who it is that we've been and who it is that we've constructed ourselves to be, more on that in a moment, we realize no longer resonates with who it is that we are in the next season of our life. And there can be a moment of panic as we're in the in-between, almost as like astrological energetic purgatory, right? Transitioning from one thing to the next, around not recognizing yourself, not knowing who you are, feeling utterly lost. And it's not that you are losing yourself during this transit, but it is that you are deconstructing what you felt like you've had to be personally in order to secure other people's validation, approval, and getting close to that wildness within you, right? That authentic part of you that is not meant to fit into other people's molds. Because of course, having Libra in the first house, you are somebody who's very charismatic. You're very other people oriented. But this transit and this eclipse could be calling into question what parts of yourself you feel like you've had to almost perform as in order to feel liked, in order to feel validated by others. There's a connection within your chart that recognizes that your identity, in small ways or big ways, can be shaped by the people around you and their responses to you, which of course a lot of times can make you guys amazing partners and amazing friends and very gifted negotiators, very good at being able to collaborate and compromise and do all of these things, because you naturally are somebody who is very geared towards others. But this transit really calls into question, what is authentically me and what do I feel like I've had to be? What are the roles that I feel like I've had to play in order to feel liked, in order to feel like I deserved to take up space? What are the parts of me that I felt like I had to be pretty and palatable and perfect in order to ensure that other people would like me? Because if other people like me, then I'll like myself. Again, Libra in the first house. And that is something that you are shedding when it comes to this eclipse, when it comes to this transit, is the versions of yourself that you have constructed, that you've molded yourself to be in order to secure other people's validation. And it's not to say that you are fake or that you're disingenuous whatsoever, but it's simply to just observe where it is that you step out of integrity or even just embodiment with yourself. Because first house has to deal with our physical body. And a lot of times when we have South Node transiting here, we feel a little disconnected to our physical vessel. And there could be sensations around being at a party and almost abandoning yourself, or being on a date and abandoning yourself, like not even being in your own body and being dialed into your own preferences around, do I like this food? Am I having fun? Being so removed around, is everybody else happy? Is everybody doing good? Is everybody else liking their food? And then being at the end of the night and being like, did I even have fun at that party? Did I even like the person on the date? I was so worried about everybody else. And it's not to say that it literally comes through in worry. I was so removed from my own physical experience and dialed into other people's experiences that I wasn't even present. I wasn't even embodied in my own desires or in my own preferences or my own experience of it. It's like part of you, you do it so naturally where you can tap into other people and almost naturally shapeshift or attune yourself to that energy. And that's a beautiful skill. But this transit has been calling into question where it is that you do that to your own detriment. Where it is that you are so concerned that other people are enjoying the party that you're not even recognizing if you're having fun. Where it is that you're so concerned around making sure that your date falls in love with you that you're not even asking yourself, do I like this person? It's like, I just feel like for some of you, there's these versions of yourself or, you know, the Haley show, the Micah show, the Jenna show, whatever the show is, the show that we put on to be other people's perfect ideal. Right? To be the perfect friend and the perfect mom and the perfect this and the perfect that. And yes, parts of it are true to you, but it's exaggerated, right? It's amplified. And there might be moments in putting on this show, the show of you, the show of wanting to be the perfect person for the person that you're connecting with, where you don't want to let your audience down. So even if there's something that's not okay with you, you actually don't like your meal, you actually don't like your date, you're actually not having fun at this party, you feel like you can't let the audience down. Because then that means that they might get up and no longer want to watch the show any longer. And this eclipse could be calling into question where you felt like your survival is contingent upon people's applause and validation and watching the show that is you. It's like you experience through the lens of other and feeling like you are not worthy unless you're experienced through the eyes of other people, which of course we're here to connect. But I just want you with this eclipse to really step into how you can deepen your own relationship with yourself, because you will take that into every other relationship that you go into, and you will ensure that the people that are watching your show, right? You don't have to put on a show, but the people that you are in connection with, you are able to remain embodied. Stay present. You're not molded to be this person's perfect ideal. You are here to be yourself and to be embodied within yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to not want to do something. It's okay to make a fuss if you want to leave the party early, if you're feeling uncomfortable or unsafe. It's okay to let your date down if you don't want to go get a drink after the date because you're not feeling it. It's okay. And there's an energy that this eclipse and this transit has been drawn to the surface around, why have I felt like that's not okay? Why have I felt like myself and my identity is almost a reflection of what other people need me to be? And maybe this has been something that's come in your life now. Maybe this even goes back in your, childhood or things of that nature where you felt like you had to be the smart one, like always had to be achieving, or always had to be this, always had to be that in order to get love, in order to feel enough. And there's just this energy with this eclipse around recognizing, yes, there were authentic parts of me in each of these shows or each of these roles that I played, but how can I get to what it means like to be fully embodied within myself and not abandon myself into other people's preferences or what other people want me to be. And I think with this solar eclipse on Lilith, it's just that reminder, you will be too much for people. People will think that you are a diva or too much, or that your standards are too high. And you might just be in front of the wrong audience, right? You might just be in front of the wrong people, and that's okay. You don't need to be liked by everybody. You don't need to be validated by everybody. And I think part of this is embracing your shadow side around, it's okay to let people down. And I think that's important for you to hear, that we will let people down, regardless, in this life. And if you are not willing to let other people down, you will let yourself down. You will realize, I stayed at that party even though it was so uncomfortable, and I didn't disappoint the people that I went to the party with, but gosh, I disappointed myself because I was so uncomfortable. And that situation that was making me uncomfortable got worse and worse. Or being on that date, not wanting to disappoint your date by saying no to the next one. But if you go on that next date and give them another, evening of your time being on that date, wishing you would be at home and be like, gosh, I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm so disappointed in myself. And I want to let you know it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to have boundaries. In fact, your relationships require them. And I think we get a great example of this within astrology. Saturn, the planet of restrictions and limitations and boundaries, exalts in Libra, the sign of relationships. For our relationships to flourish, we need to have limits to our love, because when we overgive and we mold around trying to be the ideal other for everybody else, we do reach a breaking point. And I feel for some of you that I'm talking to, you might have already reached this breaking point, or maybe this eclipse is the breaking point around this acknowledgement around, I did everything, I went above and beyond, I molded myself, I suppressed my discomfort, I went with the flow with things that made me uncomfortable, and it still wasn't enough. We all need to reach that point. And that breaking point can really be a breakthrough, because there's just this acknowledgement around it will never be enough. Every time you erode your boundaries, it's not that it just happens once, then your boundaries get to pop back. It's like they'll erode them more and more and more and more, and it'll never be enough. And again, first house extends very wide, so it's not even necessarily show up within relationships. Maybe this is coming up around work, around constantly going above and beyond for your audience or for your boss, and still being like, and it's not enough, and it's not enough. No matter how many times I bend over backwards, no matter how many times I just shut up and plaster a smile on, it's never freaking enough. And that's when you decide, okay, then enough. Enough. Because what it does when you realize you've been in that state, that you realize I allowed my boundaries to go there. And again, I'm not blaming you, okay? I'm not being mean, but I do want you to acknowledge when it comes to this eclipse, why did I allow that? Like, I stayed at work until 2 a.m. and still my boss was unhappy with me. Why did I stay at work till 2 a.m.? That's ridiculous. That is extreme. That's not balanced, right? Libra energy, that is not balanced. And why did I put up with such an imbalance? Why did I do it? Yes, to secure this person's validation, but why did I stretch myself to those limits? Why? Because when you don't get that validation that you were looking for, when you don't get that acceptance, that good job, what have you, you are just left with the realization around you went above and beyond, and for what? Because no matter how much you're looking for that validation, it'll feed you for a second and then the hunger continues. And it does make us more dependent on other people, right? You should show up because you want to. You should be present in your relationships because you want to. You should, if you choose to work late, do so because you want to, not because you're hinging it upon a certain reaction out of people. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get that reaction, you're just left with yourself and being like, why did I do that? And I think a lot of you are releasing some of that behavior. And sometimes when we reach that breaking point, we get nasty, right? Like when we finally flip, like sometimes just this sacred rage takes over. We're just like, I have just eroded and eroded my boundaries. I've given and given and given, and other people have taken. And we almost just want to explode. And I do want you to be conscious of that. Around this eclipse, it aligns with Lilith, right? We do not need to be vengeful. We do not need to essentially wreak havoc or wreak revenge, okay? But I'm just saying, a lot of times when we are just the nice girl and just like have a smile plastered on, ooh, when you hit that breaking point, the nastiness that will come out of you, that exists within all of us, right? We all have a shadow side. It's just like when we're suppressing it and putting it into the shadows, it gets more and more powerful. So when we finally break, because we cannot be perfect angel, love, light, 365, when we finally have that point where it breaks, like sometimes we can go to the extreme of that extreme, right? And be vengeful and like fully in our villain era. And so I just think with all things Libra, I think it does ask for a balance. It's reclaiming, you're allowed to be mad about things. I want to let you know that. You're allowed to be mad. You're allowed to have sacred rage. You are allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to let people down. You're allowed to not be people's favorite. But what this eclipse is asking you is to release the versions of yourself that were contingent upon other people's validation and to step into being fully embodied within yourself. And again, it's like relationships can pull out certain parts of you where it's like, gosh, I love how free I feel around this person and that feels authentic and true to me. Or gosh, I love how much I'm not thinking about what other people think of me when I'm spending time with this group of people. That feels authentic to me. Like there's data that you can find from other people, but there's an ask around if you've been putting on a show or there's versions of you where you step out of yourself. Just start to notice that certain connections where you are not embodied. You're so dialed into this person's preferences and desires. You are so dialed into how this person is perceiving you beyond how you are perceiving them. You're so dialed into everything beyond yourself. Like just observe that and let it go. Because what it is doing is it's giving you a new start to really step into your authenticity, to step into who it is that you are truly. Like if we think of all these fragmented selves that show up in different, connections and partnerships and things of that nature, part of this eclipse cycle has been wanting you to get to a space where you are more like integrated within yourself and releasing any veneers that you felt like you've had to construct for other people's validation, and connect to your physical body. South Node can make us feel very disembodied, right? So come back into your vessel. If you're in environments and you have this tendency to kind of be removed, find ways that you can breathe, that you can do things. Just remind yourself, be here now in your own experience. You don't have to be worried about everybody else's experience. Be present in your own experience. And just know that you may not feel like you get to the other side of it. Like I said, South Node energy can be a little murky, could be a little confusing. It's definitely a transitional time, but it's like embracing that transition and continue to chisel the data around what you're learning about your most authentic in your most integrated self. If you are a Virgo rising or the Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd lands within the second house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. And this eclipse is asking you to release outdated ways of approaching finances, your self-worth, and your values. So let's get into it. Because I already know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Haley, Comet, South Node in the second house. The last thing that I'm wanting to do is release finances. And it's not that it plays out so literally. So let's get into the nuances of this energy. So some of you, yes, could be in this journey around recognizing that not all money is good money. There could have been certain deals that have been on the table that have been contributing to your lack of balance, where it's like, this is too much work and I'm not receiving enough, right? This does not feel balanced. Just because it is me earning money does not mean that it is an equitable and fair exchange for my energy. And so some of you could be essentially shedding like a certain stream of income or something of that nature, where it's like, my worth is not being valued here. This does not feel balanced. What I'm putting in and what I'm getting back does not feel balanced. And for some of you, I feel like there's been this energy that you're now shedding around feeling like you have to be nice about it and that you can't say that you want too much and you can't be bossy and you can't demand a certain amount, you know, with Lilith also being here. And that could have led you to be in financial situations that were not beneficial to you, truly and honestly. And maybe for some of you, that's showing up within how it is that you approach finances within your partnership, within your marriage, what have you. But even within your clients or things that nature, setting the prices in response to what your clients want it to be, beyond what it actually takes to do the service, or not wanting to raise prices on existing retainers because you don't want to rock the boat, right? You don't want to disrupt the peace. Again, we're letting go of this false veneer of peace that actually just creates war within us, right? Because yeah, maybe we're not bothering our clients and saying, hi, there's actually going to be a rate increase, but then we have to deal with the energy we bring into that project, which you're gonna have shades of resentment incorporated in how you approach that project and how you even receive that money. Not all money is good money. Truly, like money is something that's energetic, and even if it is something that you are receiving, it does not mean that it's balanced, and it does not mean that it's good. You know, if you make a certain amount, but it's like a project that you were incredibly imbalanced around and just had to people please and just go above and beyond, like, yeah, the check's gonna come in and that's nice. We all need it to survive, but there's gonna be an energy where it just feels a little icky. There's like a certain energy, there's just a vibe when the price is right, like you're like, this is a fair price, it's a just price, this is the amount that I put in, and someone pays that, everybody's happy. It is something energetic that happens. Like when you have prices less than what it is that you know that you put into something, energetically, there will be a deficit. There will be. And that sometimes leaks out in unsavory ways. Sometimes we can build up resentment, which can be poison, truly, for our connections, financial or otherwise. Because I'm talking a lot about business and things of that nature, but second house is finances overall. So maybe even if you are splitting costs with someone on things, you know, with North Node Aries in your 8th house, there could be an acknowledgement around what's feeling fair, what's feeling just. And I'm feeling for some of you, you have to have the conversation. Like, I just feel like some of you are trying to keep the peace. Like, it can be considered a lot to talk about finances. But I feel for some of you, you need to vocalize if you feel like it's imbalanced, if you feel like something's unfair, especially financially. And like this Lilith energy might help you a bit around releasing this energy around feeling like, well, asking for my fair share means I'm bossy, or it means I'm demanding, it means I'm this or I'm that. No, it means you need to get paid like everybody else on this planet, okay? And it's not feeling bad about it or guilty about it around asking for what it is that you need. You know, even like when it comes to a raise or things of that nature, because even if you don't set your own prices, you could be experiencing this at work where you're like, what I'm putting in, what I'm getting out does not feel balanced. And as I mentioned within the prior section, I am not someone who likes to manifest with eclipses or to really interfere with eclipses whatsoever. I just let the eclipses eclipse. I take the data and then I'll implement it a little later when eclipse brain settles. So I'm not saying you should use this solar eclipse like ask for a raise, right? And raise all of your prices. But I do want you to release the thinking and the tendencies that exist within you that allowed things to get to this point. Like even just thinking back to you in the interview for this job and where it is that you didn't say that number that you knew that you wanted to say. You didn't want things to be awkward if they said no. Or to think back to when you and your partner were discussing finances and you said that it would be okay if you covered this and that and you didn't want to rock the boat. Like that's the sort of energy that I want you to release, is the behaviors that led to this imbalance or things feeling in deficit. So for some of you, it could be quite literal. You're selling stuff, you're releasing stuff. You don't want as much stuff and it's giving you more space. You know, that is what South Node is about, is around release. And with new moon, it's like, okay, I got rid of stuff around and then now I have space to call in, you know, new belongings. Or maybe some of you are just recognizing, I don't want stuff. Like this is not what I am tied to value-wise. Like I don't value these things. And so for some of you, could be on a journey with that. And I also want to say here that second house has to deal with self-esteem and self-worth. And for some of you, you could have really gone through some hurdles in relation to seeing your own worth and value, which, you know, sometimes creeps into our finances, right? What we're willing to spend money on, if we're willing to invest in ourselves. But sometimes that has nothing to do with finances. It's just how it is that we value ourselves as a person. And with the energy of Libra, where it is that you've allowed your own value or your own worthiness to be reflective or to be passive, like your worthiness dictated to you by other people, by what other people said that you were worth. It's not outsourcing your value into other people's eyes, many of which are not equipped to be able to fairly equate your price, right? Like just think of someone who works at Goodwill, who is responsible for pricing items, and a painting comes in, and it's a nice frame and it's a beautiful sunset, and they're like, okay, this will be like $35, you know, we can sell it for $35. And turns out that it is this painting that is actually hundreds and thousands of dollars of money by this very famous painter. And it's okay that the Goodwill person didn't know that. Like the Goodwill person is not an art dealer, but it's simply not that the painting was worth $35. It was just appraised by the wrong person who wasn't aware of those nuances or those details. And that's what happens when we toss our worth in people who are ill-equipped to handle it or fumble it. When they handle it, like not being able to see the value. You are not worth $35. This beautiful sunset picture that you are, okay? And it's important not to let people price you and for you to be like, oh, well, I guess I'm just $35, even though I'm artisanal and all of the other facets of you. You are not just what other people say that you are. And this is releasing that more passive, reactive approach around, well, I must be worth that much because that's what you're offering, or I must be only valuable for these things that you particularly want me for because that's what you're offering. It's like, absolutely not. I think this energy of Lilith, it's just stepping this energy around not submitting to what other people deem within you as worthy and valuable. Allow this Lilith energy to help you in reclaiming your sovereignty, right? And being unapologetic about your desires around what you want out of life, around what it is that you're worth. If you don't see it from your eyes, nobody else will see it, okay? People will love if they can walk into Goodwill and get a painting that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for $35. It benefits everyone except for yourself when you settle for less and when you do not see your value. And so part of this Libra solar eclipse is around shedding the mentalities, the habits, the tendencies within you that have allowed things to get to this point when it comes to the relationship with yourself, as well as how it is that you deem your own value. If the Libra solar eclipse lands within the 3rd house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Leo ascendant. You may just have 10 degrees Libra located in the 3rd house. So for you, there is a new beginning, solar eclipse, that's tied up in an ending on the South Node around the mind, communication. Let's get into it. It's not that you're losing your mind, okay? It's not that you're losing your mind. Some of you might feel like you're going to, right? Eclipses tend to make us feel a little bit more frenetic and a little bit more panicked. Don't worry, you're not losing your mind. But there is an ask when it comes to this particular eclipse and really the overall South Node Libra transit, is to really let go of ways of thinking that are no longer benefiting you, like outdated ways of thinking and processing the world. And for some of you, it could even be shedding certain opinions that you've held that you realize were internalized from others around, oh, this is my siblings' political beliefs. These are not really mine. Or this is what my partner thought about this. It's not true to me. Like for some of you, you can be doing some work to kind of go through your own mentality and sort of sort out what is true and authentic and real from my own experience, and what is something that I'm realizing is more so part of the consciousness of those that I spend the most time with. You know, third house has to do with our immediate environment. And a lot of times with the energy of South Node, there can be a little bit of removal from our immediate environment. Again, it's not that you're literally removing yourself from neighbors and siblings and all of the third house things, but there can be an energy around wanting to detach yourself from like groupthink or just the ways that everybody else sees things. Because North Node in Aries is in your 9th house. So it's really like the seeker energy around, let me find a sense of meaning. And there could just be an energy around just wanting to consciously disengage from just like gossip, small talk, things where you're like, in this wide, wonderful world, why are we talking about these things? This does not hold any value for me. I don't want these sort of topics to take up residence within my mind. I'm simply uninterested. And so sometimes there could just be this energy around feeling a little disconnected, whether it's like, you know, people are talking about certain things on social media and you're like, I have no clue what's happening in pop culture. Or, you know, everybody on your block has read this certain book and you're like, that is not my genre. There could just be an energy where the sort of things that you are pondering on and you are contemplating and where a lot of your journey is focused is on more 9th house arenas. So it's like spirituality, astrology, big picture, meaning, faith, like you're contemplating these bigger topics. And so you can find sometimes a little dissatisfied with just like the conversation that are being had around you and kind of wanting to distance yourself. And for some of you, it's not going to show up that way. For others, it could be showing up around just this energy of shedding certain tendencies that you have within communication to people please, to appease others via your words. Because not everybody, but a lot of you will be Leo risings, which Leo energy does want to feel validated, does want to feel recognized, it does want to feel seen. And so with the energy of Libra 3rd house, you may have gotten into a tendency of telling people what they want to hear, because then you make them happy, right? You could be that kind of like cheerleader self, and you can leave environments and people more sparkly and brighter than how you found them, which is what you want. And does it matter if you fibbed or told a white lie to get them there if the result was ideal? Like for some of you, it could be showing up like that and recognizing that that's not totally serving. But for others, it could be a much bigger story around where it is that you're fundamentally not communicating your boundaries, not saying your true thoughts on things, not speaking up and sharing your ideas if you feel like it's going to be unpopular, if you feel like it's not going to be liked, if you feel like it's not going to help you gain favor with others. For some of you, it could have even been like outright lies, right? In this effort to keep the peace, or maybe not talking about uncomfortable topics, brushing it under the rug, right? Let's not create a stir. Let's just keep the peace. Let's just keep the peace. But you're recognizing with this eclipse, or maybe overall with South Node and Libra, you're recognizing there is a hidden cost to keeping the peace. In that we keep the peace with everyone else, but we're at war with ourselves, because then we have to live with where it is that we're not being in truth or integrity with ourselves. And it's not so extreme for everyone. Like I said, it could just be this energy around you're wanting to release, you know, white lies or fibbing or not bringing up certain things within your relationship that are important to you. But for some of you, it could be much bigger, and just observing why does it make me so uncomfortable to voice something when I feel like it's not going to be what the other person wants to hear? And ultimately, even beyond, you know, small talk and pop culture and social media and all of the examples that I gave, that's really the communication that you're wanting to shed, is superficial conversations, or conversations where everybody agrees with everybody else, right? Or an energy around no one wanting to rock the boat, so we stick to topics that are safe, that are comfortable, so that we all get along. Because there is like a social payout from that, right? Around feeling the energy of likability, or that we're all on the same page. But there's an energy around wanting to release conversations that feel superficial, and wanting to like honor conversations that feel truthful and honest, even if it's not so pretty, even if people do not agree. Like sometimes those could be the most lively, mind-expanding conversations when we are willing to voice opinions or thoughts that might be a little unpopular. Or maybe even just saying something to someone else where it's like, maybe that's not exactly what your boss wanted to hear today, that you're uncomfortable with this behavior, not exactly what your partner wanted to hear today, that you want to make this certain decision, but it's being in truth with yourself that brings you into balance. Your voice is not there to tell other people what they want to hear. It's there to be able to communicate what you have to say in this world. Yes, to listen, okay? The energy of Libra, it's all about balance, balancing the listening and the receiving. But just observing where you've been tailoring communication for other people's benefit. Even if you are in social media or within marketing or within sales, there can be an energy around wanting to keep peace, not wanting to rock the boat, wanting your marketing to be designed what will be the most appealing for others. And of course, with sales, there's an element of that. But I think particularly when it comes to being a creator, if you are, you are a Leo rising, a lot of you, which is very creative. And so if you're stifling your creativity around only doing what you feel like other people want to hear from you, you could be missing out on new elements of your own growth and your own authentic growth, right? Connecting to new sides of yourself that is coming alive and new topics that you may be wanting to share on. And for some of you, you could be less interested in social media altogether, right? With the energy of third house, you could be less interested in just needing to play the game, right? Like needing to post the Instagrams to show people, look, I'm living this great life, or to comment things so people know that you guys are close. Like you could just be looking at it and be like, this is just superficial and dumb. This is not an accurate reflection of my life. And some of you are like opting out. You're like, either I'm going to embrace like my own creativity, even if it's not popular, even if it doesn't get the most likes or the algorithm doesn't like it. Or for some of you, you could just be opting out. You're thinking bigger things with the energy of North Node in the 9th house. And for some of you, there could have been a conflict with a neighbor or with a sibling where you've been trying to keep the peace and not make a fuss. And sometimes when we have been suppressing, we do reach a breaking point. And sometimes we behave in ways that we're not proud of. And that's not what I'm advocating for. I'm saying find ways to advocate before it gets to that point, right? And with the energy of Lilith, embrace your shadow side around. There will be some times that you'll come off a little bratty or a little demanding or what have you, and that's okay. Your mouth is not here for other people's ears benefit all of the time, right? And I think for a lot of us with this Libra solar eclipse, we're recognizing that in this life, we will have to disappoint people. We will have to say no. We will need to let people down. We will need to sometimes voice a dissenting opinion, because if we do not let anyone down ever in our life, we ultimately just let ourselves down. And so you do not have to do anything major with this eclipse, but one thing I would say, if you are finding there's things that you have not said, write it in a burn letter. Write it all down. Be as nasty and as mean as you want. Write it down. Get it out of your system and then light it on fire. You don't have to send it to the person, but I just want you to allow your voice to be something that can be raw and wild and expressive and maybe even angry if that's what needs to come through. If the Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd will land in the 4th house for you, this is your reading. And you might be a Cancer rising, you might just have 10 degrees Libra located within the 4th house of your chart. But regardless, you do have a story that is playing out with this eclipse and with the South Node Libra transit overall around shedding and releasing behaviors in association to home and family and emotional state. Let's get into it. So it's not that you're releasing family, okay? Do not go into this transit or this eclipse with fear, but you can find that this transit has really brought to light. It's what eclipses have a tendency to do. It's bring things to light. This eclipse could have brought to light certain ways that you felt like you had to be in order to secure validation from your family. Maybe you felt like you had to be the overachiever in order to feel good enough. Maybe you always had to negotiate or keep the peace or compromise in the home. Maybe you were even parentified and you had to be one of your parents' closest confidants. Like there's some sort of role that you could have gained awareness around. Oh, this is my role in the family. I'm the overachiever. I'm the good one. I'm the this, I'm the that. And for some of you, certain things could have gotten brought to light around what happens if I step out of that dynamic. Because that's what's powerful about relating person to person, is that when we change, the dynamic changes. And I feel that some of you, I mean, you've had North Node and Aries in the 10th house. I mean, dependent on Placidus, you may be early in this transit, but for a lot of you, you've been asked to be very bold around going after the life that you want, the career goals that you want, and realizing that being docile and playing a role and living life for other people's approval is not going to get you what you really want out of life. And so there could have just been acknowledgements around what happens when you do step out of that role, when you do enact a boundary around the family members who are so used to you bending over backwards for them. And acknowledging around, wow, that shifts our dynamic. And maybe it shifts it in more equitable ways, right? Ways where you're more safe to show up authentically, the other person is more safe to show up authentically. But for some of you, there might have been some behavior that you found very eye-opening and very illuminating around, wow, this is someone who I bend over backwards for. I've done A, B, and C for them. And the moment that I switch the role in our family dynamic, all of a sudden it's a problem. All of a sudden I'm the bad guy, or something of that nature could have gotten brought to light. And again, for some of you, it's just kind of like internal contemplations you've been making around ways that you view yourself, that you've internalized from how your family members viewed you. Around maybe you were always seen as the stupid one or the one who wouldn't go anywhere, and then that's how you see yourself. And part of this eclipse is around shedding it, around, no, that's not true. That's other people's perceptions. That is not true to the foundation of who it is that I am. And I do feel that a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times what I see is those who have Libra 4th house energy is that you could have grown up in an environment where it was very normal to keep the peace and we didn't talk about it. And even if things were messy in the household, that was not for other people to know. Like when we're out in public, when we are socializing, like we do not tell people what is happening within our own home or within our own family. Even if there was some messed up stuff that was happening, a lot of times with Libra, it's like, gotta keep it pretty, right? Gotta keep the reputation sound. And that could have encoded your soul with habits that you are recognizing are troublesome around this tendency to not want to bring up challenging emotions because you do want to keep the peace, or this desire to put up with more than you should because you don't want other people to know that there are cracks in the perfect veneer of what it is that you're projecting, or even you yourself not acknowledging the more ugly or more raw emotions because you were just taught that it's more important around how you looked than how you felt. And I don't even mean that literally in an aesthetic sense. I just mean being able to portray this palatable, put together image for other people's, consumption and perception. In some ways, you could have grown up in a family where that took precedence. Even if things were messy and chaotic, so long as people don't know, that's what matters. And that won't be the story for everyone, but I did want to bring it up here because you could have observed with these eclipses that you're acknowledging certain behaviors where you're like, why do I have such a hard time voicing my emotional needs to other people? Or why do I feel like it's so important for me to project this domestic bliss sort of image when it's not true to reality? And for some of you, you could have been shedding that. And even just shedding what your family could have wanted for you. Maybe your family really wanted you to settle down, or they really wanted you to have children, or they really wanted you to stay in the family business and you decided to go pursue something else. You are shedding what other people, particularly family members, wanted for you and for your life because you're recognizing, when it's time for me to go, it's time for me to go. So I need to make the decisions that are best for me. And like I said, when we change, the dynamics changes. And when there are dynamics such as family dynamics that are so fixed, sometimes people don't always like that. And this might be a time in which you're kind of drawing back more of your energy from family. I mean, from the world altogether. A lot of you have Jupiter currently transiting the 12th house. So you might just find that you're wanting to keep a little bit more sacred, or at least prioritizing towards the right things, right? If you have North Node in the 10th house. Another thing that you could be releasing overall with the South Node in Libra transit, but punctuated with this eclipse, is ways that you've been shaped and molded to view relationships because of your home. And this could be family of origin, but as well as like generational ancestral patterns and how people picked their partners and what they put up with within their partners and the balance or the lack thereof of balance within partnerships. That could be something that you're gaining awareness of and that you are consciously releasing during this time around observing, maybe for some of you, even in unconscious ways, how you've picked partners that are mirroring, for better and for worse, what you witnessed in the home or what was expected within your ancestry. And that could be something where you're calling in this new start in relation to partnerships that will genuinely pour into you, partnerships that are genuinely equitable, partnerships that are genuinely peaceful. And I don't mean just keeping the peace, I mean peace inward and outward, right? And that might be tied up in releasing old patterns around relationships that could be mirroring what you witnessed or what other people within your family have experienced in terms of their own partnerships. Now, outside of family dynamics, I do want to share that fourth house has to deal with home. So yes, some of you could be selling a property in order to move, right? A release and a new start. Some of you could be contemplating that. That could be on the horizon. And again, that might not be a popular decision. Maybe some of you are even experiencing a lack of harmony. Maybe you want to move and your partner doesn't, or you guys are trying to get on the same page in regards to this. If you live with roommates, maybe you've been keeping the peace at the expense of your own peace, right? Like just putting up with behaviors around the home that are not leading to a beautiful, peaceful home and sanctuary that you want to sustain. And with the energy of Lilith, it might ask you to take your power back, or at least state some boundaries, right, around what is required for your household to run. And of course, with the energy of Libra, make it fair, make it balanced. But for some of you, you're recognizing this is really imbalanced. I'm the only one who's mopping. Like, do these girlies even know where the mop is? Or do these guys even know how to dust? Like, there could just be an energy around, I am putting in so much and I am not receiving anything. And there needs to be something that rights these scales. And with the energy of South Node, it's releasing the behaviors around where I felt like I needed to keep the peace and be the perfect roommate, and having this new start around how can we genuinely make things more peaceful? Because like I said, keeping the peace out there for the rest of the roommates while being at war with yourself, seeing how dirty the floors are and feeling so resentful that everything is a mess and you just cleaned it last week, that's not true peace, inner and outer, right? And sometimes we do have to state things that are not popular, what your roommates want to hear, but for it to be more balanced, to genuinely create peace, you are part of the scale. And when it comes to a lot of you, you're Cancer rising, your home is very important to you. So even if it's not a roommate situation, even if you're living with a partner or something of that nature, it could be a spotlight around where certain things around the home are disrupting your peace, okay? And you need your sanctuary. You need your sanctuary. And to a broader sense, fourth house has to deal with emotional state. And some of you are releasing whatever causes you to have a more imbalanced emotional state. Now, for some of you, it could swing all the way towards suppression and logic and seeking to understand your emotions rather than feel them. For some, it could swing to the extreme around being very volatile and explosive and not being able to hold it in. And there is an ask for balance here, right? To be able to find strategies that help you regulate yourself. It's not suppressing. It's not, keeping the peace for other people's benefit. It's absorbing and acknowledging these emotions are here. They might not always be pretty. And how can I bring myself back into a balanced state? And what can I do about it, right? With the energy of North Node Aries, how can I be proactive, as well as disconnect myself from any behaviors that I may be engaging in or people I may be connected to that are siphoning from me, that I leave the interaction feeling more drained than I did prior, or feeling more sad than I did prior. Lots of connections are energetic, and fourth house has to deal with our emotional state. And you could just be acknowledging what within your life is siphoning your joy. You got to be a fierce protector of your joy and of your magic. And that means consciously making the decision to do things that you do enjoy, to cultivate that within your world. But it also means limiting access from things that do steal it from you or siphon it from you. And so maybe that's a person, maybe that's an environment, maybe that's a habit, but really get conscious around what is creating emotional imbalances in you in order to have this fresh new start. Genuinely prioritizing your peace. If the Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd, 2024 lands within the 5th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You could be a Gemini ascendant. You could just have 10 degrees Libra located in the 5th house. But either way, there is a new beginning and an ending all wrapped up for you around 5th house matters, which is children, creativity, birth, fun, hobbies, romance. There's a lot to discuss. So let's get into it. There is a nudge with this eclipse to release either a particular person that you've been dating or a particular pattern or habit that you've brought with you into dating that is creating a lack of balance or a lack of things feeling equitable. And so this could show up in many different ways. You could just observe that there are people that you're dating, or there are dating practices themselves that are leaving you imbalanced. Like, you're getting back from these dates and you're like, I gave so much that interaction, I feel like I got crumbs. Like, I got nothing from that. Because I think this solar eclipse alignment with Lilith has a lot to teach us around being unapologetic with what it is that we want and not settling. Like, Lilith very easily could have settled and been Adam's wife. Not that that would have been a bad gig, but it wasn't her gig. It wasn't true to her. And I find a lot of times, I'm talking to a lot of Gemini ascendants, and this eclipse is in Libra. Like, these are very persuasive, charming energies. And it can almost be a game around wanting people to like you or to pick you or wherever that shows up. And this is an energy around, do I pick them? It's like reclaiming your sovereignty around, it's not me molding myself to be the perfect person for the person I'm dating. It's also just finding the perfect person who complements me and who it is that I am. And some people will say I'm too pushy, I'm too demanding, I'm too this, I'm too that. No, I'm just not for you, right? And so some of you could be pushing out a situationship or someone that you're dating where it's just like, this is imbalance. This is not what I want. It's too much around you. I'm not receiving. And you know what? What Lilith is reminding us is that we can have what we want in life, right? If we are unapologetic about our desires and aren't ashamed around, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to be too much. This is your life. You got to get what you want out of it. Also taking charge of your own pleasure, like ensuring you're getting what you want in that regard as well. And I don't mean this in a nefarious way. Consent is everything. I'm just saying, ensuring that you are making your pleasure a priority, your needs in dating a priority, your desires romantically a priority. That's true balance, okay? It's not just all around the other person and molding yourself into what's perfect for the other person. So some of you, you're over it. Okay, this eclipse, you're like, all right, new start. Now, some of you are like not dating, you're over dating. Maybe that's been alive with your South Node in Libra. You're investing more in your friendships, you're investing more in your goals, right? You're like, universe, if you got someone for me, they're gonna have to knock on my door. Okay, I'm done with dating. Because some of you could just be really not liking the superficial quality of it, or just with the energy of Libra, just having to play the game or something of that nature. You could just have a bad taste in your mouth about it and not necessarily be inclined. Now, I don't want anyone to worry. If you've been dating someone and it's been going well, it doesn't mean that that's coming to an end. But I would say look at any patterns that you have around dating, and if there's any tendency for you around codependency or people pleasing or keeping the peace to the detriment of yourself, that might be something that you're being asked to shed when it comes to this eclipse. Now, fifth house also has to deal with creativity, and it's not that you're shedding your creativity, but you are releasing creating things that are pretty and palatable and for other people's consumption rather than what's authentic to you. There could be an energy around not wanting to go there fully with your art, right? With the energy of Lilith, this is like creating art that is weird and pushes boundaries and is raw and wild. And for some of you, you could have been suppressing that part of your creativity because you're not sure if it'll sell or if other people like it or appreciate it. And there could be an energy when it comes to Libra solar eclipse around no more. I'm going to create what I want to create, and that might be too weird for some people, and that's okay. And when it comes to creative collaborations and partnerships, some of you could be releasing a creative collaboration that no longer feels aligned, or habits around creative collaborations that are leading to a lack of balance. You know, when we get together and we create with someone else, it is like alchemy, right? It is just like pouring into one another and just creating something even more beautiful than we could have created on our own. And there can be an energy with this solar eclipse around acknowledging that it hasn't felt balanced, that you feel like your ideas aren't being heard, or you feel like the creative visions are all shaped by that person, or you feel like you're carrying too much of the grunt work when it comes to creative collaborations that you are a part of. There could be an ask for balancing here. And it's not to say that everybody needs to dump their creative partner, but there could be an ask to release the habits that led to this sort of imbalance, and however that is impacting your creative collaboration. Fifth house also has to deal with children. So if there are certain disputes, conflicts that you have not wanted to bring up with your kids because you want to keep the peace, right? You want to even be liked. You don't want to have to be the mean one or to step in and tell the person how to live, but there could be certain things that are not sitting right with you. And this eclipse could be asking you to shed this energy of wanting to keep the peace, right? To ensure that you're liked as a parent or what have you. You know, a lot of life is about conflict. Like, we're gonna have conflict in every single relationship within our worlds. And it's not about avoiding conflict, because sometimes that even sets an unhealthy example for our kids, but it's simply finding ways to fight forward. And what I mean by that is not allowing ourselves to, you know, get caught up in the tit for tat, or you did this, so I did this, but it's energy around, this is where I'm coming from, this is where you're coming from, how do we find a pathway forward? And maybe releasing this energy around not wanting to go there or talk about those things with your children, and thus creating a new cycle, a new story. Now, fifth house also has to deal with hobbies overall. So for some of you, you could find you're less inclined for partying, okay? You're less inclined for superficial party friends. You're not wanting to do things just to do things. You really have a lot of focus on your visions and your goals and what it is that you want to create on the world. And you could find that there are certain people that you would connect with socially at parties, or maybe even certain hobbies that you are a part of, right? Like pottery club or something of that nature. You might find that you're not feeling the same flow there. You know, I always think it's important, especially when Libra energy is emphasized, really acknowledging the balance and the give and take, right? And we're constantly striving for balance within this world around, you know, I pour this into pottery club and when I leave, I get this out of it. It's not saying it's transactional. It's just acknowledging this balance of the giving and of the receiving. And for some of you, you could have found that these things that used to fuel you, these parties, pottery club, whatever it is, no longer do. They're taking more from you than they're giving to you, and that's okay. It just could be acknowledging that it's time for you to widen your network, widen your concept of what it is that you deem as fun. If the Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd, 2024 will land in the 6th house for you, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Taurus ascendant. You potentially may not be. You may just have 10 degrees Libra in this house. But either way, there is a call to release in order to have a new start as it relates to your health, your work, and your day-to-day. So let's get into it. So firstly, to speak to health, because I don't want you to move into this eclipse with any fear. I know it could be scary sometimes having eclipses impact our 6th house, but I would encourage you in ways to work with this eclipse. Just look at what could be throwing your health off balance, where it is that you are sitting too much, or where it is that you are overexerting your body too much, where you are eating sugar too much. Like, observe where you are approaching health matters in extremes. And this transit could be drawing to your awareness a need to release a bad habit that has been throwing you off balance within your health. And this could be showing up around releasing sugar from your diet or trying to cut back, or releasing certain food groups from your diet that are throwing you off balance, or even releasing certain things that are throwing your hormones out of whack. Like, there could just be an acknowledgement around where it is that we are craving more balance and balancing of the scales in order to feel our best. Because also just observing in terms of your own energy, just where there's a lack of balance, right? Maybe you've been doing, and there's a need for more rest, or maybe you're lethargic and drained, and there's a need to really look at your lifestyle and see what is causing me to feel so imbalanced, to feel so sluggish. You know, I don't do that much yet. I'm still so exhausted. Like, is there anything that is creating this kind of like energetic leakage from my world and allowing me to feel so imbalanced? So some of you could be releasing something that has been detrimental in regards to your health and your well-being. For others of you, there could just be an acknowledgement around how it is that you structure day to day and reclaiming your agency and your autonomy over your time. The gaps in your schedule are not invitations for other people to fill them, right? Or other errands or things that people need from you to fill it. It is your time. And I feel like some of you during the South Node Libra transit and potentially during this eclipse are really stepping in that around, no, I cannot stay longer at work, or no, I cannot help you out with that errand. Just recognizing, for me to show up, for me to give, I need to give to myself. Again, we're looking at balance and what throws us off balance in every regard. And so some of you can find like your time has been too available to other people and it's time to pour back into you. This is an eclipse in an air sign. you need to do the activities that feel like a breath of fresh air to you, for you to be able to pour into your daily routines and the things that are important to you within this world. So for some of you, maybe you're the side of the scale that's been imbalanced. Maybe you haven't been prioritizing yourself. Maybe you just feel like there's certain working relationships that feel imbalanced. There's certain people who are dependent on your service where it feels imbalanced. You know, sixth house has to do with our daily working world. And with the energy of Libra here, maybe you've been going above and beyond to please customers or to please clients or to please coworkers and not really enforcing your own boundaries. You know, no one will enforce your boundaries unless you do. Other people actively benefit when you do not enforce your own boundaries. And I do want you to be conscious if you have woven parts of your own validation into, gosh, you just do it all, or you get everything done, or you do everything perfect. This eclipse could be picking apart where it is that you feel like you are worthy because of what it is that you do, particularly in others' eyes, is the energy of Libra, where you take on your coworkers' extra tasks because you love to be seen as someone who's helpful, or you will help with this particular project so long as people react favorably to you. But the thing is, when it comes to doing things for other people's validation, again, sixth house brings through very like kind of physical efforts and things of that nature, is that other people's validation is not a guarantee. And at the end of the day, you're just left with the boundaries you eroded if you are just doing it for other people's validation. Because if you don't get that, then you're like, well, I pushed aside everything I needed to do with my day to help you with this, and I didn't get a thank you. And again, people should be nice. They should thank you. But it is this acknowledgement around what are the behaviors in me that allowed me to go above and beyond. Because it doesn't feel good when it's not reciprocated, when it's not balanced. And you need to acknowledge your side of the scale of this around when you truly help someone, right? You do so with a pure heart. And sometimes these sort of behaviors around doing things out of the sensation of obligation or martyrdom, it does infect our heart. It does make the actions that we put in, while laudable, it does infect them with a little bit of ickiness because we're doing so out of this sensation around, oh, I have to, or they always do this, or they're not going to thank me like next time. Again, people should thank you. Your efforts should be poured into, but it's important to know that when you decide to do something, you decide to do something. You cannot allow your behaviors to be contingent on how other people react, right? Because then it sets you up in situations where it's like, oh, I'll do it because they were so happy last time. And then you continue eroding your boundaries, looking for that prize of other people saying, good job, or thank you, or what have you. It's like, to a certain degree, I think with North Node Aries, it's just taking this degree of agency and autonomy of our lives around, you chose to do it. And what happens from that space is out of our control, but you know that you chose to do this. You chose to say yes to this project. You chose to say yes to this task. You chose to stay late because you wanted to do it. And again, a lot of life is about connection. I'm not saying you shouldn't help people, but I'm just saying you have to be content with the decision that you're making and not allow yourself to get resentful when you don't get the response that you wanted, right? And so some of you, you're releasing being the martyr. You're releasing being self-sacrificial. You're like, you know what? It is never enough, because that's what I feel a lot of us are getting to with this Libra solar eclipse, is this energy around, I give and I give and I give and I give, and I mold to be what you want me to be, and it's still not enough. It's still not enough. And that's where the Lilith energy comes in, where it's just like, fine, I'm gonna be enough for myself then, because clearly it'll never be enough for you. I'll never work late enough hours. I'll never help out with enough projects. I'll never do the projects that I do take on perfectly enough. Like, you have to step into this energy around choosing to do things and allocate your time because you want to and because you see value in it, and not because you want to feel liked or validated by other people. And so for some of you, there could be some coworker dynamics right now where you are releasing, you know, keeping the peace, taking on all of these extra projects for Lydia. You're like, Lydia, where is your role in this, right? Our work project should feel balanced and symbiotic. And so for some of you, you are getting more comfortable enforcing boundaries, you know, saying things that aren't comfortable to say. You know, with the energy of Libra, it's about keeping the peace. But as I've been echoing through this video, when we keep the peace for everyone else, we're at war with ourselves. And so there's an energy around shattering the silence of certain issues that could be alive within your workplace or within, you know, coworkers, or even if you work for yourself or something of that nature, within customers, right? Feel like you have to go above and beyond, which obviously is part of customer service, but to your own detriment, right? And so just an energy around really wanting this energy of balance and not fearing the uncomfortable conversations, because everybody else benefits when we keep the peace. You are the one who suffers. So you have to be willing to momentarily disrupt the peace in order to find genuine peace in how it is that you spend your day to day. Because for some of you, your schedule is just too much, and there can be a need to release certain things from your schedule that are throwing you off balance. You're energetically exhausted. Some of you are swinging through extremes, like you overwork, you burn yourself out, and then you just crash and you just completely close yourself off from the world. Do not talk to me. Do not look at me. And some of you are wanting and craving to find more balance within your day-to-day, like just a nice flow around, some work and some connection and some creativity, and not living in these extremes, right? And some of you are really seeking to find that at this time. And some of you, yes, could be releasing a job. The job could have been released from you. Okay, maybe you chose to walk away from a certain position. Maybe the position chose to walk away with you. Regardless, this is a solar eclipse. It's on the new moon. So just know if anything ever leaves your life during an eclipse, it was meant to be. That was the universe saying, not this job. We're setting you on a new timeline, right? And so welcome in the new story that is playing out. And with the energy of sixth house, look at your routines, look at how it is that you spend your day to day, and just ensure that it is giving the balanced lifestyle that you want to continue to cultivate. The balanced, peaceful lifestyle that you are wanting to cultivate. If the Libra solar eclipse lands within the 7th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You could be an Aries ascendant. You could just have 10 degrees Libra located in the 7th house. Either way, there is a new start and a release all bundled into one package, one eclipse, showing up for you around relationships. And before you panic and freak out and think, Haley Comet, are you telling me I'm gonna go through a breakup with this eclipse? Not necessarily. There's a couple of different ways that this will show up, whether you are single or you are partnered. So firstly, I do wanna highlight some of you could have gone through a breakup during the time that South Node's been in Libra, or it's been within your 7th house. For some of you, that could be alive with this eclipse. Now that's going to be a small percentage of you, and I do want to let you know that if somebody gets snatched up from your reality during an eclipse, like something just falls apart, or it just feels like the universe is not allowing this thing to flow, or that person just randomly decides that they don't want to be with you anymore, you gotta let them go. If it happens around an eclipse, it's bigger than you, my love. It is bigger than you. And allow that to give you a sense of solace. If the universe takes someone from you during an eclipse, that is protection. This rejection is the universe protecting you. Because one thing you gotta know is that as much as you might love this person and know this person, the universe knows them better. And all the stuff you don't know. Their utmost intentions, their truest desires, their true nature, their secrets, their bad habits, their path. And the thing about eclipse is that it is cosmic course correction season. So if we have been on certain courses that we were not meant to be on, it puts us onto a new course. And sometimes forcibly, it's like, no, but I liked this course with this person. It's like, the universe sees where you're going, sees where this person's going. And if they leave during eclipse, you gotta trust it was not meant to be. As much as you can cling and beg for this person, you gotta trust if it happens during an eclipse that this timeline is done. And sometimes I've seen with clients in that this goodbye or this exit from your life is a temporary thing. It's meant to catalyze your soul's development and you guys will come back together. But one thing I just want you to rest easy in knowing, what is meant for you will not pass you. Who is meant for you will not pass you. If it's not meant to be right now, it's not meant to be right now. And you guys will come back together if you're meant to be later in life. Just trust, if it happened during eclipse, there's something within my soul's development, because that's really what eclipses are, is soul development, that is asking me to go my own way right now. And I need to trust in that. And maybe it's temporary, maybe it's setting me up for a new beginning, who knows? But you gotta let go. You can let go or be dragged, because a lot of times when an eclipse takes something for us, I mean, that door slams shut, right? And we gotta just continue walking. Maybe that door will reopen in the future, who knows? But you gotta just take this invitation saying, whether it's for your protection or it's for redirection, you've gotta withdraw your energy from this person. And so let's say you're teetering. You're like, Haley Comet, but I don't know if I want to be with this person. I don't know if I want to end things. Maybe you've had certain contemplations around, should I be with this person? Should I not? Should I be with someone? Should I not? What I typically recommend during eclipses is not to make any sudden decisions. Like a lot of times eclipses eclipse for us, like it'll eclipse people out of our life. We don't even need to get involved, or like information will surface where you have no choice but to leave, where you just reach a breaking point where like there's no other option for me. Like I need to walk through. If you're not in that place yet, just see how you feel after eclipses. Of course, if you're in any sort of dangerous situation, I would deeply advise to get out as quickly and as safely as you can. But if it's just a situation where you're ambivalent, you're not sure, I would see how you feel after the eclipses. Observe the data that comes up within your relationship, but see how you feel. Because a lot of times with eclipses, we're more intense, we are more emotional, we're more energetically fraught, and we don't see things clearly when we are in that state of mind, and we don't see people clearly, and we don't see the partnership that we've built clearly. And it's not that everybody is going through a relationship release during this time. Some of you could be releasing bad habits within your relationships, tendencies to keep the peace, right? To the detriment of yourself, tendencies to mold yourself into what you think will be the most palatable and loved by your partner. That could be something that you're releasing, because that is not true, genuine partnership. Partnership is a symbiosis. I pour into you, you pour into me. I show up authentically, you show up authentically. And the more that we show up for our relationships with ourselves, the more genuine our relationship can be together. And so there is an energy around, where have I been self-sacrificing or making myself smaller in order to fit within my world? And where can we step into new habits that will support a more harmonious relationship? Because we all have a breaking point, and I do feel with some of us, with this eclipse on Lilith, we might reach that breaking point. And what I mean by breaking point is if you've been just trying to, be a good husband, be a good wife, keep it all down, at some point, we just want to explode, right? And sometimes we could say things that we do not mean, or that are very cruel, that we do not intend, which is never appropriate, right? But it's like, when we suppress our shadow side, it gets more and more powerful, and it just wants release. And that's why it's important to allow healthy conflict or healthy ways of release before it gets to that point, before we swing into these extremes or into these opposites, right? Around just trying to keep the peace, it's all good, and then swinging to like demon mode, like literally. If you study Lilith, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there is an acknowledgement with this eclipse around, yes, I might have been putting up with behavior that's not okay with me, but where have I been contributing to this dynamic? It takes two to tango. And where have I been allowing my partner to set the pace and not advocating for the way that I want to tango, right? Like, there could be acknowledgements of that and releasing that in order to have a new start in partnership. Now, if you are single as a Pringle, okay, you are single, you are uncommitted to anyone, a couple of contemplations that I would say. The first is there can be a need to release someone from the past, okay? And, around eclipses, sometimes people from the past pop in. Listen, here's the thing about people who pop back into your life during South Node transits. It could be someone from the past, right? And maybe there's a degree of familiarity, right? You guys can settle into your roles, but really ask yourself before you let this person into your life, do they fit with who I am now? Because sometimes when we reconnect with people from our past, we resort to a prior version of ourselves that we were within that dynamic, that fixed groove of how it is that we relate to them. And with North Node, most likely in your first house, there could be a contemplation around, hang on, this is not who I am anymore. I'm not gonna play this role with you anymore. And so that could be one way that this manifests. Another way that this could manifest is, someone who brings the worst out of you. For some of you, it's not even someone literally from your past. It could be from a past life, which is nice. There's a degree of familiarity, but sometimes it could bring the worst out of us. So really acknowledge what you're learning from relationships and what sides of you kind of come alive within these relationships. And for some of you, maybe it's just like releasing the past, grieving someone from the past in order to call in a truly equitable, harmonious, balanced partnership or marriage that you are wanting to experience. I always think of South Node like a vacuum. And so there could be some stuff that the South Node is vacuuming out in the 7th house, right? Just like debris from past relationships, partners who told you you were too much, partners who told you that you'll never get what it is that you want, or just partners that you haven't been able to get over. Like, this could be an energy around releasing that, like fully shutting that door. Like, if you have still keepsakes from past relationships, or you still talk to someone from your past, because the universe works in vibration and energy, and we attract what we are. And so sometimes when we knowingly or unknowingly, are in this vibration of being 1 foot in the future, 1 foot in the past. So like open to new connections, but also still talking to our ex. Open to new connection, but still hold out a candle for this like situationship, right? Like halfway in, halfway out. Sometimes we can attract partners who are emotionally unavailable, like kind of there, kind of not, hot, cold, or wishy-washy. And you might be saying, well, Haley, Comet, I'm open to love. What's the deal? But it's like, really look at where you could be showing up as a little wishy-washy or emotionally unavailable, not in how it is that you're spending your time, but in what it is that you are allowing to take up residence in your life romantically in terms of partnership. So if there's people that you're kind of holding out hope for, or you hold out a candle for, or you still talk to, or you're still unsure about, there just could be a need around signal to the universe that you really are ready and open for a fulfilling, equitable partnership by closing the door on things that were not it for you, right? And absolutely, some of you can be starting new relationships, but it's important that you don't bring in baggage from the past, whether it's things you haven't gotten over, or even just certain ways of fighting that you've brought with you from past relationships or things of that nature. There's an ask to really prioritize peace and balanced symbiotic connections. And I'm going to widen this because 7th house is not just romantic partnerships. It's how it is that we relate to the general public, any sort of one-to-one. And I want to highlight here that you could be essentially shedding any sort of relationship within your life where you feel like you are giving more than you are receiving. This energy of the solar eclipse by Lilith is making a lot of us be unapologetic about what it is that we require and want from our relationships. Like, you are valid and fair for requiring certain things from your connections, right? You are valid and fair for finding it inappropriate that you leave certain interactions feeling utterly depleted because the person just trauma dumped on you for 3 hours and didn't ask you one question about yourself. Like, you are valid. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us are programmed with this energy around gotta keep the peace and be polite. And it's just this energy around acknowledging that it is better to be in your own energy than around people who are siphoning your energy, right? Because if you're in your own energy, you could protect it, you can curate it, you could pour it into things. But if you're around people who siphon it, it like takes time for you to energetically rehabilitate yourself into that space of creation and new opportunity. And there just could be a need to audit energetically, like what interactions are you going into with others where you start feeling refreshed and bubbly and you leave feeling drained and exhausted. And you might be saying, well, Haley, I'm an introvert, and I'm an introvert also. So a lot of times introverts are a little bit more drained after human interactions. But I really want you to pay attention, because there's a difference between being tired, right? Needing to rest, needing to eat something, what have you, versus feeling drained, exhausted. This is gonna sound insane, bear with me, but I started to observe the patterns. And I started to notice that every time I spent time with this person, I would feel so sad. I would feel so incredibly sad. And I know my sads, I know the shades of sad that I typically feel, and it was like a different sort of sad. And I felt it to my bones. After, I would just feel so sluggish and so incredibly drained. And all of these things would happen to me that don't typically happen. I was getting parking tickets. I was like dropping things. I was just like off my game. I even felt less cute. I felt less pretty after spending time with this person. And I started marking it in my journal. I started marking every time I spent time with this person. And I had little color-coded stickers that would signify the different moods that I felt before and after. And that was the data that I had to face for me to finally cut this person out of my life, because I had these little yellow stars that would signify I went into the interaction feeling hopeful and optimistic and joyful. And then I had these little like blue circles that would signify that I felt sad. And seeing it visually, just seeing that every time I had a gold star to blue pretty much all down the column, and seeing that helped me not feel like the bad guy for just limiting this person's access to me. Because part of me, and maybe part of you too, wanted to alchemize this person's energy for them because I care about them and I don't want anyone to be sad. And just from the residue that it left within my soul, I'm like, my gosh, this person really must be moving through something. And they would always talk to me after we spent time and say how they felt so energized and restored and they were having such a great week after we spent time. And I would like be in the shambles of my life, like, why did energetically we switch so much? And that typically can represent there's like an energetic cord, like somebody is is siphoning your energy a bit. And part of me why I stayed so long in this dynamic is because I was like, well, I'm glad I get to like alchemize and transmute this person's energy for them. But then I really thought about it and I was like, Haley, it takes you a week to get back to energetic baseline. And during that time, I mean, I find it very challenging to film. I find it very challenging to work. And it's like, those are things, not to sound conceited, but those are things that I do feel can help people or help like raise people's vibration. And it's like, why would I just allow my energy to be siphoned by this one person when if I'm just protecting it more so, there could be other people whose vibrations I could lift up without having to take such an energetic toll. Like, I think a lot of us are releasing these themes of like self-sacrifice around this Libra energy. And whether it's friendships, relationship partners, what have you, really observe where you're doing that for others, where it is that you are sacrificing yourself in order to help other people's vibration, you know, in that instance, or where it is that you're sacrificing what you're uncomfortable with in order to make things perfect for somebody else. And just acknowledging that's not true, genuine partnership, right? We can't come in as a partner as just a construction of what the person that we are connecting with wants us to be and needs from us. Like, you are valid to have your own needs and desires and preferences and boundaries. And I think astrology really represents this so beautifully because the planet that rules boundaries, Saturn, exalts in Libra. So it's like an astrological reminder that if we do not enact them for ourselves, not only will we have people in our life who will erode them, right? And see how far they can get with us, but also you will feel resentful and you'll feel like a martyr. And of course, it's not your fault that people have treated you poorly. But there could be an ask with this eclipse to release the behaviors that allowed them to treat you as badly as they did. So if you are a Pisces ascendant or 10 degrees Libra falls within the 8th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. And for you, the Libra solar eclipse is a story around merging, surrender, and where it is that you receive from others and receive from the universe altogether. Let's get into it. So firstly, I want to share with you that 8th house has to deal with joint finances. So to those of you who are married, you're in a business partnership, this eclipse could be calling into question how balanced or imbalanced those financial arrangements are. Some of you might be with a spouse who is spending more than the two of you are earning. Maybe you're the side of the scale that's spending more than you're earning. Maybe there's a power imbalance. One person's calling all of the shots financially, and that's not fair. And it's important to know that when it comes to partnerships, so much of contributions are not just physical or not just tangible, right? Around maybe one person earns more, but someone else handles more of the domestic labor, the child care, or maybe within a business partnership, one person contributes a lot of financial capital and one contributes a lot of sweat labor. It's important to acknowledge that contributions are not just strictly financial, but to ensure that these contributions are equal. Because again, it's hard when it's not just like dollar for dollar, but when it's like, okay, I'm bringing this much of money in and you're bringing this much time in, like it's not always such an equal exchange, but it should feel balanced. And I feel for some of you, you've been feeling like it has not felt balanced. And perhaps that's something that you are releasing in order to have a new start of a truly balanced partnership. Now, I will highlight some of you could be going through a divorce. You could be releasing a certain business partnership that has not felt balanced. It was like you were partnered with someone who was a taker and you're a giver. And it's like, why am I always in such financial deficit? Why am I in such debt? Because of who I was partnered with. And maybe there's a nudge for you to be more self-sufficient, right? For you to take charge of your financial future with North Node in Aries. And so with the energy of 8th house, outside of the joint finances element of it, 8th house also has a lot to do with intimacy. And so also it could be calling into question where it is that we give and take in that regard as well. And that could be, you know, secrets or the innermost parts of our soul that we allow our partner to have access to, right? Like intimacy, things of that nature, and ensuring that there's a give and take and ensuring that your pleasure is made a priority as well as your needs are made a priority. You know, 8th house has a lot to do with our psyche, and with the energy of Lilith, there can be certain desires that you've suppressed beneath the surface because there could be a sensation around, you know, certain secrets or certain things that you've pushed beneath the surface that you're like, gosh, if they knew these sides of me that aren't so pretty, would they still love me? And those could be fears that you've been acknowledging, and maybe you're releasing the fear around allowing this person to see the inner crevices of your soul and of your desires and of your shadow. And you could be releasing this need to keep things pretty and palatable and surface level in this effort to be what you think this person wants you to be, rather than what really exists beneath the surface. And when it comes to 8th house, it has a lot to deal with grief. It has a lot to deal with transformation. And so some of you could be grieving someone from the past, and it could be someone you lost. It could be even a past relationship, partnership that you're grieving. You know, we got to energetically release. And I hate to be crude when I say this. I have a point, I swear, but every house in astrology governs many different things. And one of the things that 8th house governs is waste. If you catch my drift. And there could be an energy for you to let something go. Let something go, right? And this could be, you know, baggage from your past. This could be a past relationship. It's like, we do not grieve waste once it's out, right? We just flush it down. Like, there's just an energy around let something from the past go. And maybe you have, but like energetically still residing in your psyche, or an element that you're still clinging to it. There's just a need to let it go, like let it release. You'll feel lighter as a result. I'm so sorry, that was disgusting. But just one dimension of this eclipse, and really embracing our transformation as we continue to release. And for some of you, if you're dealing with grief, like literal grief within your life, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I think a lot of times when we talk about 8th house energy, it is around, you know, death and taxes and things that are unavoidable. And sometimes those experiences can really sharpen into focus what matters in life. Like 8th house is very intense, and a lot of times it can sharpen into focus around this experience on this planet is finite. And with the energy of Libra, I don't have enough time on this planet to live it for other people. Like, I don't want to be at the end of my life and be on the final bed I'll ever be on and be so grateful that I fulfilled all of my parents' desires for my life, right? And fulfilled what I felt like my wife wanted me to be and my husband wanted me to be, or all of these people, right? There's just an energy around when it's time to go, it's time for me to go. So I need to live the life that I want to, and not live life for this validation, adoration from others that, who knows, maybe will never fully arrive, right? And it's just this energy around, yes, sometimes 8th house energy makes us contemplate some darker themes of life, but there's an energy around when you contemplate the darker underbelly, you don't want to just keep things surface level and light and pretty and palatable. You really want to live life richly and fully and intensely and for yourself, right? You know, I know not all of you are Pisces risings, but a decent amount of you are, and you're having a lot of major transits, okay? Let me say that. You're a bit of a main character right now, and a lot of times Pisces energy can be very, you know, self-sacrificial because of your empathy, and there's just a need to acknowledge that no one is going to get what you want out of life unless you do, and you need to advocate for your side of the scale, right? Because this life is precious and it is finite and it is a one-time thing, so you got to make it the most true to you that you possibly can. So if the Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd, 2024 lands within the 9th house of your birth chart, this message is for you. You could be an Aquarius ascendant, you could just have 10 degrees Libra within the 9th house, but either way, there is a new beginning and an ending wrapped up for you around your belief systems, travel, and higher learning. So let's get into it. So firstly, what I want to say is that you could be shedding things that you've been told to believe. Like some of you, that could be playing out very literally around religion or some sort of mentor, or even just higher education around this is how the world is, and you uncovering, that doesn't feel true to me. And again, a lot of you are Aquarius ascendant, so a lot of you are naturally rebellious in this way, but a lot of you are parsing through what is true to you versus what is not true to you, what could have been like indoctrinated from other people, whether it was academic mentors, whether it's professors or mentors or gurus or even spiritual teachers. You know, 9th house goes into this, and when it comes to your connection, your relationship to God, your higher power, or anything that you find a sense of meaning in, it is yours. And what's right for one person might not be right for you. How one person prays might not be how you pray. Like some religions find that astrology is evil, and some people, even if they abide by that religion, they still dabble in astrology because their connection is their own, and their concept, their framework of how it is that they connect to the universe and connect to their higher power is their own. And even if it's different than your spouse's or different than even someone who taught you, it is your own. And this eclipse could be asking you to release things that don't feel true to your own connection to the something more. And some of you are just releasing this overall grass is greener type mentality around always wanting to be somewhere else, right? Always having wanderlust. A plane is going overhead right as I say that. Always wanting to be somewhere else. Even if the energy of Libra, like always, you know, on Instagram, looking at people taking these trips and going all of these exotic places and wanting to live life as though it's a Pinterest board, which is all well and great. Who doesn't love travel? But there's a desire to really step into just the rawness of your life with North Node and Aries, and just acknowledging that life is not just Pinterest boards and when we're traveling and looking for wisdom abroad. It's also how it is that we talk to our neighbors. It's how it is the walks that we have around the neighborhood. Like so much of life is in these mundane, everyday moments, but we could still find meaning within them. So stop waiting to live. I also see some of you have been like waiting for a partnership in order to feel like you can go travel or to have the courage to go travel. I've shared this before if you follow my channel. I spent my birthday in Thailand and I went by myself, and it was a very empowering, inspiring thing to do. And of course, be safe, like do your research, but it is very empowering being able to go somewhere on your own. And I just want to say to the one person who's watching this where you were waiting for your life partner to step in so you can finally go travel, that's not a necessity. Not that I think you should travel during this eclipse. There could just be a certain mentality that you're shedding around needing somebody else to go experience this world. Some of you could be releasing what other people have programmed you to assume or believe around higher education. So people could have pushed you into academia and you were kind of figuring out if that's right for you or if that's just what other people wanted for you. Maybe you are going into academia and that's not what other people want from you. Like there just could be contemplations around what's truly mine and what's not mine. And really, when we talk about ninth house, it gets very abstract, philosophical. And I just think that a lot of you are just kind of like shedding needing your life to be built around partnership. Like some of you could just be consciously decentering romantic relationships in your life in terms of your overall ethos and like philosophy, and just an energy around wanting to live life richly and learn something new every single day, and to not feel like you have to go find yourself, but know that every day presents an opportunity to create yourself, and to not feel that wisdom is only found in faraway places and in college hallways and things of that nature. Wisdom can be found within the day-to-day. You know, a lot of you are in a really growth-oriented cycle. Pluto is soon to re-enter your sign. It's settling in for the long haul now until 2044. And a lot of that transformation, like it's not always going to show up in these big grandiose ways. It shows up in the little things of life. And so I feel that there's an energy around to be more present around the little things of life, as well as to release any belief systems or ways of viewing the world that knock you off balance or that don't make the world feel like a very peaceful place to live in. That's also coming through around, let's say you've had certain religious beliefs that weren't indoctrinated from someone else. Let's say it's just something that you've always held, but it does knock you off balance. It brings in more feelings of, you know, guilt into your experience or doubt or things of that nature, or to even find balance around the spiritual dimensions of life, wanting to understand from an astrological level, from a spiritual level, what's happening with living your life, right? Not just understanding it from the higher perspective, but living it. There could be an ask for balance there as well. If the Libra solar eclipse lands within the 10th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Capricorn ascendant. You may just have 10 degrees Libra located in this house. But regardless, there is a new beginning wrapped up in an ending showing up for you around career, social standing, and reputation. Let's get into it. So firstly, let's all take a deep breath. I don't want you to feel like you're going to lose your job around this eclipse. That could be the story for some, either around this eclipse or throughout the overall South Node in Libra transit, but I don't want you to live in any fear. And if you do lose your career, you lose your job, something of that nature, do know that the universe honestly and truly is setting you up for something that is more in alignment with you and the life that you really want to live. That's why when it comes to eclipses, if a door slams shut in your face, you have to trust it's because the universe is opening a new one. Like when things happen during eclipses, it's like there is a bigger cycle playing out and your job is to kind of get out of the way, to see where things settle. And so not everybody's losing a job, but some of you could be releasing a certain pattern around career with an authority figure that has not been healthy. It has not been balanced. You know, some of you could be releasing a pattern of overworking, overexerting yourself, overgiving, maybe even doing things for the validation of an authority figure, of a boss. And for some of you, maybe even going above and beyond for validation that never fully felt like it was extended to you. Like you would stay late and take on any extra projects and do all these things that contributed to the lack of balance within your life, hoping to get a good job or you're doing great or whatever you were looking for from a boss and still not receiving it. And really needing to get into alignment around doing things. If you take the extra projects, if you stay the extra hours, doing them because you want to and not because you are hinging that behavior around getting a certain response or reaction out of people, because a lot of times that will not be what it is that you receive. We cannot get concrete, certain results from something that is as changeable as a human being, right? And so there can be a release of needing that validation from an authority figure within your life, and even releasing ways of approaching career or approaching work that are contributing to a lack of balance. There's really an ask to balance out work and life. Some of you could be overworking. Some of you could be starting a new journey within career, right? And craving more balance in that way around, I want to get out there. I want more kind of public notoriety. But I will say, with South Node here, you could have gone through some career shifts, you know, throughout this transit, depending on how long it's been here. And some of you could have even let go of certain career paths that you thought that you wanted because it's what other people wanted for you, right? It's what your spouse wanted for you. It's what family wanted for you. It's what other people wanted. And when you tap into it, you're like, this is not me. And I do want to let you know, if you've been experiencing a lack of motivation around career, you're like, this is just not lighting me up. Maybe it's because you've been through such severe burnout, right? Living in that extreme that you almost just have this ambivalent feeling towards it. Maybe you used to be passionate about it, but then you burned yourself out. Now you're just like, whatever about it. I do want to let you know, a lot of times that is to be expected with South Node. It's not always shows up around a dramatic door being slammed or a huge career change. Sometimes there's just an energy around, you know, I was girl bossing or I was slaying, and now there's just an energy around, I want more of my energy to go towards the home or towards family or towards other arena. I have no interest in just being seen and being successful just to be successful. I want it to mean something to me. And for some of you, you are releasing any sort of approval or validation that you can receive from the broader world. You're finding that from within, which is a very powerful place to be in and to really step into the driver's seat of your life. Because for some of you, even if it wasn't trying to curry favor from a boss or authority figure, it could just be this energy around trying to outsource your validation via your success on the outer lens, around projecting a certain lifestyle on social media or hitting certain career goals that validate to you, look, I'm admired, look, I'm liked, look, I'm doing great. But a lot of North Node Aries, what it's been nudging you towards is, but does it feel great? Does it feel great? And how can you create a life that feels so good that you don't need to post about it or be seen in a certain way? You could just live it. You know, I've always found that when I'm happiest in life, I typically need to broadcast it the least. At least that's for me personally. And maybe that's the energy you're in. Maybe you're not wanting to broadcast your significant other, right? With the energy of Libra. Maybe you're not wanting to share these private things of your life. And if you work with clients or any sort of one-to-one contractors, things of that nature, there can be an energy around releasing what they want for your career in order to step into what works for you. Right? Like if you're a business owner, the greatest thing about having your own business is that you could scale it as big or as small as you want. And so if it's gotten to a level where it's too big, like it's demanding too much of your time and energy, it's leading to imbalance, you might be asked to scale back. And other people, contractors, clients may not understand that, but they don't need to, is what I want to say. And you got to get comfortable with letting people down. When it comes to this eclipse, if we do not get comfortable with disappointing people, we will ultimately disappoint ourselves. If you do not enforce boundaries with clients or contractors, you will be run over. And of course, when it comes to business, when it comes to career, we want to be kind, we want to be charismatic, we want to be pleasant to work with. I'm not saying being rude, but it is this energy around if you always prioritize everybody else's needs rather than your own, you will lead to habits that lead you to feel burnt out and taken advantage of. And so it's important for you to be diligent in enforcing boundaries around how it is that you work with and partner with others, particularly in career, so that you don't allow it to go to these extremes, right? Because sometimes when we're in such extreme people-pleasing, burnout, taking it all on, we swing to the other side and then we just feel so disconnected, we don't want to do anything, right? And the balance is in between. And just in case any of you do not work, so you're like, I don't know where this is showing up, also think of just reputation, public, social standing. Maybe this is energy around everybody in your community wants you to be the president of this club and you don't want to. You want to keep more energy private. There just could be an energy around releasing what other people have to say about you is kind of the vibe here. And stepping into what you truly and honestly feel about yourself, right? And validating yourself, not looking for it in these external things, really wanting to feel it yourself. If the Libra solar eclipse lands within the 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You could be a Sagittarius rising, you could just have 10 degrees Libra located within this sector, but either way, there is a new start and an ending wrapped up for you around your friendships, your hopes and dreams, and your community. So let's get into it. So firstly, I do want to say that you could have experienced some friendship breakups throughout this South Node in Libra transit, even around this eclipse. And what I always say when it comes to things that depart your life around an eclipse is that you need to trust and believe that it is for a bigger purpose that you may not see at this moment. But if something departs your life during the eclipse, it's because the universe will reach down into your reality and snatched it from you for a reason, right? For a reason. So it doesn't make the pain of feeling betrayed or having someone that was significant to us, taken away from us within our life, but try to have solace within that around, even if there was like a weird friendship breakup or just a group of people just suddenly felt like they didn't like you, please just trust, know, and believe that the universe knows your heart, your soul, your talents, your intentions, and it knows their heart, their soul, their talents, their intentions. Like it knows things and broader schemes of things beyond what we conceptualize or see right now. And so trust that sometimes this rejection from a friend or from a social group is really the universe's redirection. And for some of you, this could have been something that you did. You moved away from your friendship group, or you've just been finding that you don't resonate with the same groups of people as you used to. And that's okay. That is okay. As you evolve, so will the people around you. As you grow, you will outgrow. And so it's allowing that flow. And I think ultimately with the energy of Libra, it's releasing the need to have a group of people around you, just to have a group of people around you. Releasing this need to feel validated by, well, I'm part of this clique. I'm part of this group of people. If those interactions are not genuinely fulfilling. It's releasing social groups where it's just based around, well, it's nice to have, people that I could post about on Instagram or whatever it is. You're just finding like those are not the sort of people that I'm wanting to spend time with, or it's not enough to just have a group of friends, just have a group of friends. Like I want them to be real and fulfilling and deep friendships where I can show up as I am, which sometimes is this Lilith energy that we've been talking about within this forecast, which is raw and wild and unapologetic. Right? And allowing the friendships that really see you and meet you in those depths and don't just need things to be superficial and light all of the time. And so when it comes to friendships, some of you could be calling in new friendships, but that space to call in the new is from, the release of the old, which again, some of you could have been in the driver's seat of those shifts. Some of you could have felt like those shifts were made for you. Some of you, even if there weren't any shakeups within your friendship circles, it could have been releasing certain patterns within friendships where it is that you have given and given and given, and where it is those in your life have taken and taken and taken, and wanting to have more equitable connections. And maybe that's new connections, maybe that's connections that you already have, right? We don't need to have a release around having all of the people who used to be in our life no longer be in our life. It can also be just like, this is a pattern around how I have shown up in our connection, you know, superficially, or even had people-pleasing behavior or martyr behavior or resentful behavior because I was not vocalizing what boundaries you were crossing or where I was feeling undervalued or underappreciated. And that creates a new start for our friendship because now we've released this kind of toxicity that was plaguing it. So not everybody needs to go through a friendship breakup at this time. And some of you could just be purging and grieving, you know, past friendship that could still be just hurting your heart. You know, it takes time, and there can be an energy around really wanting to close that chapter. Maybe it's even just like releasing memorabilia that you have of the two of you, or deleting them on social media, like those final things to just say, this is not someone I want within my orbit, and I'm going to close the door on this. Again, I'm not saying you have to, but if it was like a really painful friendship breakup and you still feel them in your energetic field, there could be an ask to really close the door on that in order to open yourself into new, mutually beneficial, equitable, balanced friendships that you are wanting to experience, but you're not willing to sacrifice yourself in the search of those sort of friendships. You know, some of you might be feeling a little lonely. Some of you could be prioritizing your own creative expression. You could be doing your own thing, and you're supported in doing your own thing, and just trust that the right people will meet you where you're at when they're meant to, right? It's kind of like, you know, you've got North Node in the 5th house. You're kind of like dancing to the beat of your own drum, and the right people will come in and dance with you. But you might find this time you're like, I don't resonate with my friendship group or just with the people I'm around. South Node can kind of be a vacuum sensation. It's not always the most favorable for gain. So just trust that the right people will dance along with you when the time's right. And outside of friendships, this is also the sector that has to deal with hopes and dreams, our own as well as for humanity. And so with this energy, you could be releasing things that you thought you should want because of how other people see the world, right? Like, you should want to live a life like this, or this is a successful life, right? Having this sort of marriage or having this sort of thing is the recipe for success or happiness. And that's something you're letting go of. You're like, those are your dreams. Those are not mine. And you're also just wanting to have fun. You're wanting to enjoy this experience. And some of you are shedding this behavior around eternally living for tomorrow. Like a little bit of moritis around, as soon as this happens, as soon as this happens, as soon as this happens, then I'll be happy. Some of you are taking accountability of your own happiness, like moment to moment, day to day, and you're no longer wanting to live for tomorrow, right? Because it's not promised. It's not promised. And some of you are just having agency over what you want out of life. You're being unapologetic. You have big dreams and you're unapologetic about that. Maybe some people will be like, oh, that's unrealistic. Or some people will be like, why would you want that? Like, not everybody is going to get the visions that you have for your life, and they don't need to. That's the whole thing. And I feel that some of you are just being unapologetic about your desires and how it is that you envision your future. If the solar eclipse in Libra lands within the 12th house, this reading is for you. You could be a Scorpio ascendant. You could just have 10 degrees Libra within the 12th house. But either way, there is this new start and ending wrapped up into one with this eclipse showing up around your secrecy, your spirituality, and your self-undoing. So let's get into it. So there's been a broader story at play with South Node in Libra around some of you recognizing how relationships for you could have been a form of self-sabotage. It could have been something that led to extremes, right? And I'm talking to a lot of Scorpio risings. I know you guys know extremes. Extremes when there was a obsession or being willing to go beyond yourself in order to meet this person's needs, like where it is that you've self-sabotaged your path in order to either mold yourself to be what other people wanted or to stay within a certain connection or partnership, even when it made it clear that you guys were on different paths. Like, some of you could be acknowledging that that's been a form of self-sabotage. Even for some of you, the partners you select could have been a form of self-sabotage. People who did not believe in you, people who did not have the space to support you in blossoming into all of the potential that you have as a human being. This transit and this eclipse could have asked you to look at that. And a lot of you have been working hard, you've been being proactive, you've been taking responsibility over your day-to-day, and it's just important that you fully not only just release the partnerships of the past, but release the tendencies within you that made you seek out those partnerships, especially if they were imbalanced, if they were toxic, what have you. Because if we do not bring certain patterns from darkness to light, we could repeat them, right? And 12th house is kind of the darkness. And so there can be an energy around really acknowledging what within me made me feel like this is what I was worthy of. Or what within me made me feel like my only value as a partner is if I went above and beyond for this person. Or what within me still held out hope for this person who was continually mistreating me. Like, how can I really learn the data of that? So I switch the pattern, right? I release this pattern of certain relationships that have been imbalanced, that have taken me for granted, and set up a new story around my relationships, around my partnerships. And, you know, it starts with me. Like 12th house energy is like subconscious processing. What's beneath the surface? Like, what within my psyche attached to this person? Right? Like, whenever we date someone, we date their psychology. And in a lot of unfortunate ways, sometimes we can find people where our, you know, trauma and triggers just gel perfectly with theirs, and we just trigger one another and just stay in this like toxic loop of energy. They just fit in and they continually feed one another. And again, I'm not saying that that is your fault, how people have treated you, or the relationships that you've been in, but just this energy around how can I shift the pattern? You know, 12th house is the final house of the chart. So it's like, how can I really dead these patterns that I've brought with me? For some of you, it could be romantic relationships, but it also could be family relationships, friend relationships, just parts of your psyche where you felt like it was more important to secure this person's validation rather than to validate yourself. There could be underlying dynamics that you're bringing forward around what within you is seeking these people out, what you are hoping to gain, seeking these people out, and where it is that you could potentially, you know, dead the cycle. I'm not saying you have to release every relationship within your life, but releasing the unhealthy behaviors that you bring with you into connections and just bringing these things to light, right? That's the energy of the 12th house. And some of you, there could just be a need to like really get over someone. You know, there could be a certain spiritual relationship, telepathic relationship that's still alive within your aura, within your energy that you are being asked to, you know, close the door on. Sometimes I see with this story that there's like a secret relationship or a relationship with someone who's far away or someone who's, you know, locked up or something of that nature, like unavailable, like a little distant. And it's hard because a lot of times when we are wanting, let's say if you are wanting genuine partnership and connections and one that don't just feed on, you know, the most destructive parts of your psyche and reinforce those negative stories that you tell yourself, but truly healthy, balanced partnerships, if you're in search of that, oftentimes if we're still holding out hope for these kind of like halfway in, halfway out, wishy-washy dynamics, or I love you but I'm not here, or I love you but I can't, or I love you but it has to be secret, like these halfway things, like that vibration and being halfway there is not compatible for calling in a partner who is fully there, if that's what you're in search of. And so sometimes when you're in this halfway in, halfway out, or on-off relationship, or whatever the story is, you can attract the people who are emotionally unavailable or who are also halfway in, halfway out, right? Because to a certain degree, energetically, we do attract what it is that we are. And I think a lot of you are just gaining awareness of that and like really wanting to understand your energetic, psychological processes around why you are attracting the people you're attracting, why you are dating the people that you are dating, what you've learned from their past relationships. And you're taking that data and you're deading any cycles that you don't want to take with you any longer is really the energy here. And you know, I'm talking to a lot of Scorpio risings who tend to be extreme. And some of you could be teetering through extremes where you're like working so hard on something, grinding every single day, working out, hitting the gym, or just working a lot, and then needing lots of time to recover and just check out from the world. Or maybe it's oscillating through extremes around being very social and then needing to be in your own space. Like some of you are just going from extreme to extreme, and there is an ask to find more balance. Repeat after me. Success is a balanced lifestyle. And if you found that you kind of oscillate through the cycles around every single minute, accounted for, doing all the things, and it is supported, right? You've got North Node finishing up its journey in the 6th house. That is helpful. But if it's done to excess, you will eventually swing to the other extreme and need to isolate and be in hermit mode. And honestly, with the energy of Lilith, some of you could be really acknowledging your own self-sabotaging behaviors, even outside of relationships and partnerships, just other elements of where it is that you sabotage yourself out of a refusal to confront who it is that you really are, what it is that you really want. And with the energy of 12th house, some of you could really be contemplating, what within my psyche am I seeking to gain through others? Like, where did my people pleasing come from? And how can I advocate for myself and get what I want out of this experience? Because no one's going to get what you want out of this experience like you will. And ultimately, a lot of you are going deep. You know, and I know a lot of you are no stranger to that, being Scorpio rising, but a lot of you are just going deep around the underlying messages that you tell yourself and where it is that they could have been programmed by people around you. People who told you that you wouldn't amount to anything, or people told you that you were so this or so that, or that you should want this or want that. A lot of you are bringing those things to the surface and releasing the things that are not true to you. And really just wanting your underlying script to be one that contributes to your peace. And you find peace in life when you live life as the person that you are, making the decisions that feel right for you, and releasing where it is that you could be self-sabotaging in this effort to live out other people's dreams or be what other people want you to be. And just needing to get comfortable to a deep psychological level around where it is that you could have built your life for validation from others, and what part of your psyche was seeking to feed from that or get nourished from that. And how can you find that within yourself, within your own solitude? So my loves, I would love to know, have you already been feeling this Libra solar eclipse building? What's the most resonant of the house that it is landing in for you? Comment below. My Instagram handle is @HaleyCometAstrology. My TikTok is the same. I would so love to connect with you over there. I'd love to give another heartfelt thank you to Balessa for partnering with me on our Libra solar eclipse all signs forecast. A reminder that you can win a free toy or gift card towards a toy by entering my giveaway. I'll have it linked within the description as well as within the pinned comment, so we can step into this Libra solar eclipse on Lilith feeling unapologetic about our desires and what it is that we want out of this experience. So make sure to check that out. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.